Chapter 447. Zhang Xiaohua stared blankly and asked in astonishment. Little fishy Nye, why would I be angry with you? Nye Qianyu spat and said, Keep pretending, do you think I can't tell? Big brother Ren, do you want to see the refining methods of the refining sect? Zhang Xiaohua looked helpless and touched her nose, saying, Little fishy, can you not be so smart? You make people feel very insecure. Pfft. Nye Qianyu laughed out loud this time and said, It seems that Big Brother Rin is not angry anymore. Angry? Why would I be angry? I'm really not angry at all. Zhang Xiaohua refused to admit it. Seeing this, Nye Qianyu said carefully, Big Brother Ren, don't be so narrow-minded. Actually, if you want to see the refining methods of the refining sect, it's not a difficult thing. Eh? Zhang Xiaohua became interested and turned to ask. Isn't the refining methods of the refining sect a secret manual exclusive to the refining sect? How can you let outsiders see it? Big Brother Rin doesn't want to see the refining methods of the refining sect? Nye Qianyu said casually. Zhang Xiaohua also disagreed and said, As the saying goes, it's not a burden to learn more. If I have the chance to learn refining, why wouldn't I learn it? Big Brother Rin is really ambitious. Nye Qianyu said. As a matter of fact, the basic skills in the alliance can be borrowed and learned from each other. Brother Rin only needs to ask father to borrow the skills from the refining school, and he will certainly be able to learn them. Why do you have to trouble senior brother Lu? Oh, that's fine too. Zhang Xiaohua was a little enlightened. This alliance is really an alliance. A lot of things can be shared, it's really not bad. But Big Brother Rin, don't expect too much. Nye Qianyu continued to explain. The things that can be borrowed are the basics. The most profound ones are the secret manuals of the various sects, so they definitely can't be borrowed. But Big Brother Ren, in this world, the most taboo is to bite off more than you can chew. As long as you can master the medicine manuals of the Rejuvenation Valley, it's already very good. After all, you still have to practice the martial arts of the sect. Zhang Xiaohua nodded. You're right. However, he turned his head and said, I still want to see how these weapons are made. Nye Qianyu sighed and said, Alas, the weapon refining sect has declined. I heard from my father and the others that in the past, a long time ago, the weapon refining sect was a famous sect in the Jianghu. Many people would try their best to curry favor with the weapon refining sect in order to obtain a weapon. Oh right, Big Brother Ren, this weapon is not our current weapon. I heard that it is a very magical item, but it is a pity that it is something from myths and legends. The weapons forged by the armament refining sect and other sects are just a lot sharper. Of course, the weapon refining gate and the weapon forging gate have secret techniques that other sects don't have. They can create weapons that can be infused with inner strength, and they can also strengthen it. Ah? A weapon that can strengthen one's inner strength? Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. This was the first time she had heard of such a magical thing. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's reaction, Nye Qianyu was a little surprised and said, Big Brother Ren, don't tell me your sect doesn't have such a weapon. Zhang Xiaohua thought for a while and said honestly, Maybe they do, but I don't know. Oh, I see. Nye Qianyu smiled. These weapons are all divine weapons and are rarely seen in the Jianghu. Even if your sect has them, they will be kept as a tribute and may not let Big Brother Rin see them. Then, she explained, increasing one's inner strength is not the same as increasing one's own inner strength. This kind of weapon can use a method to amplify the inner strength that is infused into the weapon. For example, if Big Brother Rin infuses 100% of his inner strength into a long sword, it will also be 100%. However, this long sword can amplify your inner strength by 10% or 30%, so the inner strength that is sent out through the long sword will be 110% or 130% of Big Brother Ren's original inner strength. So magical. Zhang Xiaohua opened her mouth and said hatefully, If I had known, I would have taken a look at the booklet. Pfft. Nye Qianyu laughed and said, Didn't you say that you didn't have any bad intentions? Didn't you reveal it now? However, Big Brother Ren will be disappointed. Although Senior Brother Lu's position in the weapon refining sect is not low, he is absolutely not qualified to come in contact with such a top-secret skill. He. Zhang Xiaohua said resentfully. I was just excited to see him. How can I snatch his things for no reason? You're so stubborn. Nie Qianyu curled her lips. Sigh, the more you read, the more you feel that Nie Qianyu is cute. I want to make her the rightful wife. What a dilemma, she said. If you want to learn, you can talk to my father and learn the basics of the weapon refining sect. After a few years, when you have the foundation, you may be able to read it. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua did not speak, Nie Qianyu said thoughtfully. Although Senior Brother Lu looks very reckless, he is not a simple-minded person who likes to cause trouble. Why did he come to me tonight to compete with you in terms of strength? It's really strange. Zhang Xiaohua stroked her chin and said with an unfathomable expression. If it is as he said, that if I lose, I will leave Rejuvenation Valley tomorrow as promised. Do you think this is his true intention? Not at all. Nie Qianyu said with a charming smile. This kind of provocation is too clumsy. Even Senior Brother Lu himself might not be able to use it, let alone when he was instigated by someone else. Eh? Zhang Xiaohua said with a face full of surprise. Little Yuer, you also know that he was instigated by someone else? I thought that I was the only one who knew. Ha ha! Nie Qianyu laughed so hard that she swayed back and forth. After a long while, she said faintly. Big Brother Ren, you really know how to joke. Sigh, I just don't know who told him to come and what his intentions are. Zhang Xiaohua asked with a deep meaning. Could it be that you really don't know? Nie Qianyu was startled and asked in return. Could it be that you know? Zhang Xiaohua spread out her hands and said. If even you don't know, why would I know? Nie Qianyu also spread out her hands and said. If I knew, would you also know? Suddenly, Nie Qianyu felt that this sentence was ambiguous. It reminded her of the poem. Without the wings of a colorful phoenix, our hearts are as one. She immediately blushed again. It seemed that Nie Qianyu blushed a frightening number of times when she was with Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua also realized something and changed the topic, asking, What books did you take? Only then did Nie Qianyu realize. She hurriedly pointed to the pile of books on the table beside her, and said with a smile, These are the books that I usually read in the study. I picked some of the more basic ones. Big Brother Ren, take a look first. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. Zhang Xiaohua roughly skimmed through the pile of books. There were books on the planting of medicinal herbs, the sorting of medicinal herbs, the recording of pill formulas, acupuncture, human meridians, and decoctions. In short, they were very detailed. Zhang Xiaohua was touched when he saw them. Even though Zhang Xiaohua had not officially joined a sect, he was aware that this pill formula was definitely the most important thing in a sect. At least, he had never heard He Tianshu mention it before. Now that Nie Qianyu casually brought it to him, it seemed that she had no intention of hiding it. Zhang Xiaohua picked up the pill formula and looked at Nie Qianyu with clear eyes. He said, Little fish, yeah, this is probably the treasure of your Rejuvenation Valley. Isn't it a little too early for you to give it to me now? Nie Qianyu also met his eyes and said without blinking, Since father asked me to give it to you, I think you're qualified to read it, so I took it for you. If you don't want to read it, then I'll take it back. As she spoke, she was about to snatch it. Zhang Xiaohua retracted his hand and dodged. He blinked and said with a smile, When did I say that I don't want to read it? I'm just saying that it's too early. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua carefully put the pill formula in the pile of books, a sweet smile appeared on Nie Qianyu's face. The two of them sat down. Nie Qianyu carefully explained the general content of these books and the order of reading them to Zhang Xiaohua. Finally, seeing that the sky was already dark, she said, Big Brother Ren, it's already late. I think you should rest early. Anyway, there's still a lot of time in the future. It won't be too late to read it slowly. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, That's true. You must be exhausted. Rest early. After speaking, he stood up, bent down to pick up the long sword, and was about to take the books again. Nie Qianyu waved her hand and said, Big Brother Ren, just take the long sword. I'll take the books for you. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the pile of books on the table and said with a smile, Then I'll have to trouble you. After speaking, he went up and took a few books with his other hand. When Ye Qianyu saw that he was holding the long sword so easily, she couldn't help but ask, Big brother Ren, what's your long sword made of? Why is it so heavy? If not for senior brother Lu being unable to pick it up today, I would almost think that it's an ordinary sword embryo. Zhang Xiaohua waved it around and said, I picked it up from a barren mountain. Who knows what it is? It's just that it's unusually heavy, so it's easy to use. Ye Qianyu asked again. Big brother Ren wants to learn the techniques of the weapon refining sect. Do you want to refine this sword embryo into a real long sword? Zhang Xiaohua thought for a while and said, I don't know what material this thing is made of. I reckon that the weapon refining sect might not have a way to refine it. Ye Qianyu nodded and said, If Big Brother Ren wants to refine this sword embryo, it's best to find the weapon refining sect. They have a unique way of making some strange weapons. The weapon refining sect might not be as good as them. Oh? Zhang Xiaohua said. Is there a difference? The weapons produced by the weapon refining sect and the weapon refining sect are similar, but both sects have their own specialties. For example, the weapon refining sect's swords are sharper, while the weapon refining sect can refine strange weapons. However, in terms of increasing internal energy, both sects are similar. I see. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. It seems that one day, I'll have to let the people from the weapon refining sect come and provoke them. I'm afraid that they won't bother with me coming here for no reason. Bah! Ye Qianyu couldn't help but spit again. -3. Chapter 448. The two of them chatted and laughed as they walked to the door. Someone was already waiting for them with a lantern. It was Little Orange. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua, Little Orange smiled and said, Young master, are you going back to rest? Zhang Xiaohua said, Little Orange, we haven't seen each other for half a day. Why are you so talkative? It's better to call you Brother Ren. Little Orange was not satisfied and argued. Master has instructed me not to expose myself. I still have to call you young master in public. Zhang Xiaohua pointed to the darkness outside and said, Where did this person come from? Ye Qianyu also said, Little Orange, don't make things difficult for Brother Ren. If you call him that, I'll also feel embarrassed. It's just a pretense. Little Orange smiled and said, Miss, don't feel embarrassed. If you feel embarrassed, someone will be even more pleased. Zhang Xiaohua touched her nose and did not say anything. Ye Qianyu laughed and scolded. Little Orange, quickly lead the way. You've been tired for the whole day. Let's quickly settle Brother Ren down and rest. Little Orange then stopped joking and led the way with the lantern. He led the two of them to the front of the small building. This was a 2-story loft. There was a low wall outside and a small door. The door was open and light shone from inside. Zhang Xiaohua and the two of them walked to the door. 2 maidservants hurriedly came out from the courtyard and greeted them. They took the books in their hands and walked into the small building together. Ye Qianyu pointed at the two of them and said, Brother Ren, this is Mo Mei and Mo Ju that father left behind to serve you. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she quickly waved her hands and said, Forget it, little fish Nye. I was born to be served by no one. Take them back with you. Okay. Ye Qianyu did not refuse this time. She might not feel at ease leaving the 2 maidservants in the building. After the 4 of them left, Zhang Xiaohua closed the door and blocked the door with her long sword. She then took out the jade pendant from her bosom and counted it as her spoils of war. There were a total of 4 jade pendants of different sizes, all of them emitting a weak yuan-qi fluctuation. But when Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense entered, she discovered that the yuan-qi in 3 of them had already dissipated. Most of the content recorded inside had already been lost and could not be understood. Only one of the smallest jade pendants was still intact. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense had just entered when immediately 4 large words were projected into the jade pendant. We're rich! Zhang Xiaohua cheered and did a somersault on the ground. She was extremely happy. Just now, she had schemed for a long time at Nie Qianyu's place to obtain Lu Meng's booklet. Unfortunately, Nie Qianyu saw through her, and she did not succeed. However, the jade pendant that Lu Meng treated as a piece of junk actually recorded the extremely important weapon refining general principles of the weapon refining sect. It had to be said that Zhang Xiaohua's character was really extraordinary. She could not help but despise Lu Meng. He really had eyes but could not see the jade inlaid with gold. Alas, Lu Meng could not be blamed. This jade pendant could only be read by divine sense. He was only a mortal with his naked eyes, how could he see through it? Moreover, the current Jianghu was an endless treasure for Zhang Xiaohua who had divine sense. She could pick and choose and slowly search for it. After Zhang Xiaohua celebrated her outburst of good luck, she took out a straw prayer mat from her purse and threw it on the ground. She then took out a few jade slips from her bosom and set up a formation. Only then did she sit cross-legged and immerse her divine sense into the jade pendant, carefully reading the weapon refining general principles. After a long time, the sky gradually darkened. Zhang Xiaohua finally opened her eyes and carefully put the jade pendant into her purse. She muttered to herself, "So this weapon refining general principles is not an extremely precious item. It is only the most basic introduction to weapon refining and a simple method of weapon refining. However, this is also good. I am only using it to refine formations. If it was more profound, I would have no use for it. Weapon refining is actually different from pill refining. I thought that since I had learned pill refining, I would be able to easily learn weapon refining. I was still a frog in a well. However, thinking about it, if pill refining and weapon refining could be interconnected, then Rejuvenation Valley would also be able to refine weapons. Why would there be a need for the weapon refining sect and the weapon forging sect? Also, this weapon refining general principles talks about immortal weapon refining methods. Only immortal weapon refining methods can be used to refine weapons. This weapon refining sect has already transformed into martial arts, so how do they refine weapons? Moreover, it can actually increase inner strength. This secret is indeed amazing. I forgot. Since the inner strength of martial arts can be infused into weapons, then can the true chi of immortals be infused into weapons as well? It's already late. When I have free time in the future, I should try pouring true chi into the small sword. However, is the warm current in my left arm also true chi? Thinking of the dense purple chi circulating between the small sword and her left arm, Zhang Xiaohua faintly felt that the warm current in her left arm should be something different from the true chi in her meridians. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Xiaohua took out vitality stones from her bosom and began her nightly cultivation routine. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Xiaohua had already stayed in Rejuvenation Valley for more than 2 months. In the beginning, everyone in the valley covered their mouths and laughed when they saw Zhang Xiaohua, calling her son-in-law. Zhang Xiaohua naturally didn't give any celebration money. After a few protests, everyone changed to calling her young master, under Valley Head Nie's forceful command. This way, Zhang Xiaohua was slightly more accustomed to it. Moreover, after 2 months of understanding, Zhang Xiaohua gradually understood that Rejuvenation Valley was divided into 2 areas. The inner valley was at the entrance of the valley, which was the core area. Outside of the entrance of the valley was the mountain villa, which was considered the outer valley. Everyone in Rejuvenation Valley lived in the outer valley. The outer valley was also divided into 3 areas, namely Qihuang, medicinal herbs, and medicinal pills. They were distributed in different areas of the outer valley. Medicinal pills were at the entrance of the valley, which was the central area of the outer valley. Qihuang was at the periphery of the mountain villa, which was the entrance. Most of the other areas belonged to medicinal herbs. The one in charge of Qihuang was Valley Head Nie's eldest disciple, Mu Qingxian. He was a middle-aged man who didn't look much younger than Valley Head Nie. Mu Qingxian specialized in acupuncture and medicine. He only had a rough understanding of martial arts. Mu Qingxian also had a dozen or so young disciples who mainly studied medicine. In terms of martial arts, they were the same as their master, sloppy and ordinary. The one in charge of medicinal herbs was Valley Head Nia's second disciple, Fei He. There were also a few younger disciples helping him. Among these disciples, there was one who was more outstanding in martial arts. Zhang Xiaohua felt that he looked familiar. After asking, she found out that she had seen him on the arena of the marriage contest. He was a member of the first group to be eliminated. Thinking about it, Rejuvenation Valley and the weapon refining sect wouldn't just stand by and watch. Presumably, the small group of 4 people was Rejuvenation Valley's chess pieces. Unfortunately, they were eliminated as soon as they went on stage. Fei He had a lot of subordinates, but he only had 1 or 2 disciples. They weren't very outstanding. His other junior brothers hadn't reached the age of teaching disciples yet. Therefore, Rejuvenation Valley felt that there was a shortage of young people. In terms of medicinal pills, Valley Head Nia didn't assign anyone else to be in charge. After all, it was the core resource of Rejuvenation Valley. Before there was a considerate, reliable, and worry-free candidate, Valley Head Nia probably wouldn't give up the authority. Although the marriage contest was Rejuvenation Valley's way of saving Nie Qianyu, it was also Valley Head Nia's way of seeking talents. Zhang Xiaohua's appearance was really in line with Valley Head Nia's standards. Especially his unpredictable martial arts cultivation, it was as if it was tailor-made for him. Therefore, he ordered Nie Qianyu to guide Zhang Xiaohua's learning. Moreover, he also knew that his younger daughter would definitely give as many books as possible to Zhang Xiaohua. The pile of books that Nie Qianyu gave to Zhang Xiaohua the day before was very complicated. It contained various kinds of unique skills of Rejuvenation Valley, and medicinal herbs and alchemy took up a large part of it. Zhang Xiaohua had already practiced Immortal Fire Dragon's Jade Slip on the deserted island and was very proficient in alchemy. It was just that she lacked raw materials and couldn't practice alchemy. Although this part of the books was very important to Rejuvenation Valley, it had lost its original meaning to Zhang Xiaohua. Of course, what was recorded in the Jade Slip was only the way of immortality and the cultivation methods of medicinal herbs. Many of them were no longer suitable for the present. The books of Rejuvenation Valley happened to make up for the shortcomings. Zhang Xiaohua specially read these books for the first 10 days or so. Although the cultivation of medicinal herbs and alchemy of martial arts were poles apart from the way of immortality, their essence was the same. Zhang Xiaohua had already understood the essence. Naturally, it was very easy for her to learn the details of martial arts and alchemy. Nie Qianyu thought that Zhang Xiaohua would keep asking her, but she didn't come for several days. When Zhang Xiaohua appeared, she just asked a little and asked Nie Qianyu to take her to see the actual operation, which made Nie Qianyu very surprised. As long as the cultivation of medicinal herbs was in the outer valley, there was nothing to hide. She let Zhang Xiaohua see everything. However, the place of alchemy was in the inner valley. Nie Qianyu still needed to report to her father, so she couldn't take Zhang Xiaohua to see it without permission. Zhang Xiaohua was also not in a hurry, as if she had a well-thought-out plan. Later, when Valley Master Nie knew that Zhang Xiaohua wanted to see alchemy, he was surprised and couldn't figure out why Zhang Xiaohua was so talented. When Nie Qianyu went to find Zhang Xiaohua again, Zhang Xiaohua was already carefully learning the art of qi and huang. Nie Qianyu was furious. Alchemy was Rejuvenation Valley's unique skill, and the art of qi and huang was only supplementary. She didn't focus on alchemy, but instead went to learn the art of qi and huang. Wasn't she neglecting the essentials and focusing on trifles? When Zhang Xiaohua first started learning medical skills, she only felt that alchemy could produce miraculous pills, but it might not be useful for ordinary people's illnesses. Nie Qianyu's medical skills in the nameless town that day were far superior to the local doctors. If she could learn some medical skills in Rejuvenation Valley, she might really be able to benefit herself and heal others, as Valley Master Nie said. He had originally wanted to learn the art of Qi Huang out of curiosity, but when he carefully looked at Rejuvenation Valley's acupuncture techniques and medicinal decoctions, and combined them with his own knowledge of the immortal Tao, he discovered that the mysteries within were far from what they appeared to be on the surface. There was truly a lot more to it. Moreover, there were things that he had never thought of before. Qigyan. -3. Chapter 449. Speaking of the arts of Qi and Huang, one had to talk about the human body. Although Zhang Xiaohua cultivated the immortal Tao and tempered his meridians, in reality, he had never really had the opportunity to systematically study the knowledge of the immortal Tao. In fact, even the immortal Tao only had outstanding research on the human body's meridians, and did not have an extremely detailed understanding of the human body as a whole. Of course, the immortal Tao's cultivation techniques were as brilliant as the stars, and there were also many body tempering techniques. However, these body tempering techniques were the same as Qi tempering techniques. They all focused on how to temper the body to a tyrannical state. They would never clearly explain the functions of the heart, lungs, liver, and other organs, or how to regulate them. Of course, they would not carefully study the characteristics and illnesses of the ordinary human body. And after careful study, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly realized one day that the things in these people's bodies felt very familiar. Thinking about it carefully, didn't it coincide with the heavenly Tao that he had been comprehending all day long? With this thought, the more Zhang Xiaohua studied, the more he found that there were many traces of the heavenly Tao. Could it be that there was also a miniature of the heavenly Tao in this person's body? Zhang Xiaohua was somewhat in disbelief. However, what surprised him was the concept of the 5 elements, and the theory of yin and yang in the study of the human body. These were not comprehended by Zhang Xiaohua himself from the heavenly Tao, but he could actually find the corresponding content from these things when he compared them with the outline of the heavenly Tao in his mind. In an extremely short period of time, Zhang Xiaohua's understanding of the heavenly Tao entered a whole new level, and the Carefree Heart Sutra cultivation technique also improved greatly. What was even more amazing was yet to come. When Zhang Xiaohua had a little foundation in the art of Qi and Huang, more than 20 days later, he began to study acupuncture. Acupuncture used the power of needles and stones to stimulate the acupoints of the human body and adjust the balance of the human body through the meridians to achieve the goal of treating illness and pain. From this art of acupuncture, Zhang Xiaohua first understood the harmony and adjustment of the heavenly Tao, so that the heavenly Tao he knew was no longer static and stagnant, but gradually became more dynamic and lively, closer to the truth. Secondly, because illness and pain were not limited to the meridians cultivated in martial arts, but were distributed throughout the entire human body, the acupoints involved in acupuncture also covered the entire human body, and the meridians that could be stimulated were also far beyond what internal energy could reach. These things had no meaning to other cultivators of martial arts or the way of immortality, but Zhang Xiaohua had just obtained a detailed map of the meridians of the human body when Zhang Xiaohua was born, and had been worried that he could not put it into practice and find a way to cultivate from it. Now, it was good that he had found a breakthrough. All of the above had led Zhang Xiaohua's cultivation to a whole new path, a path that no one had ever walked before. How could he not be fascinated by it? Therefore, except for the first 10 days when he had just entered Rejuvenation Valley, Zhang Xiaohua spent the next 40 days in Mu Qingshuan's Qihuang courtyard, learning pharmacology, studying the human body, practicing acupuncture, and helping to look, listen, question, and feel the pulse, learning how to treat people. Because Zhang Xiaohua's learning was not simply learning how to treat people, but looking at the changes in the human body from the perspective of the evolution of the way of heaven. It could even be said that he was studying the pain of the human body from the level of life and death of the way of heaven. Birth, old age, sickness, and death were part of the way of life and death. Looking at the pain from the way of life and death, one could often see the essence better. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua was often able to find the root of the pain from a deeper level. Then he could learn from Mu Qingxian and the others' acupuncture methods or medicinal stone methods, using the evolution of the way of heaven as the essence to think about the correction of the human body's pain. Not only was it of great help to his own cultivation, but it also gave him a unique insight and method in the treatment of pain. In the beginning, Mu Qingxian knew his master's thoughts. He thought that Zhang Xiaohua would put in a lot of effort in the area of medicinal pills. He just wanted to roughly understand the situation in Rejuvenation Valley in Chihuang Courtyard. But with Zhang Xiaohua's daily research and his huge improvement every day, Mu Qinxian had to reconsider his attitude towards Zhang Xiaohua. He immediately reported this situation to Valley Master Nie. Although Valley Master Nie said that Zhang Xiaohua wanted to learn the art of Qi out of benevolence, it was only because of Zhang Xiaohua's character. He did not fully support the learning of the art of Qi. Naturally, he still wanted Zhang Xiaohua to learn more about medicinal pills. But seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was so infatuated, he was embarrassed to stop her. He only let Mu Qinxian teach her well. Mu Qinxian received his master's instructions and was even more attentive. His disciples were not diligent, nor were they not outstanding. But compared to Zhang Xiaohua, who had only been in contact for a few dozen days and was able to comprehend by analogy, and had her own unique treatment method, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. After a few dozen days of learning, Mu Qinxian gradually found that for ordinary diseases, Zhang Xiaohua's treatment method was not much different from others. But it was often some difficult and complicated diseases that made him and his disciples scratch their heads. Zhang Xiaohua had a very good method. She could even find some acupuncture points that he did not know and help treat. Of course, in terms of the dosage of medicinal stones and proficiency in acupuncture, these were still a little immature. But this was the accumulation of experience. After a certain period of time, it would naturally be done. A genius! A genius! Every time Mu Qinxian saw Valley Head Nie, he would praise him like this and ask, "Master, could it be that when one's martial arts are strong, they will comprehend by analogy and their medical skills will also be brilliant?" Valley Head Nie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Although having some success in martial arts would certainly give one a deep understanding of the meridians and acupuncture points, which would be of great help to the study of medical skills, it wouldn't be enough to create a godly doctor. More importantly, medical skills were only a small Tao and not the foundation of Rejuvenation Valley. What he wanted Zhang Xiaohua to learn was Dan medicine and alchemy. Therefore, on a certain day 2 months later, the weather had already warmed up. Early in the morning, Zhang Xiaohua had just finished practicing the Big Dipper magical fist, and was about to hurry to Chihuang Courtyard to be his intern when Valley Head Nie came knocking on the door. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was about to go out again, Valley Head Nie asked, "Virtuous nephew Ren, I heard that you have been studying very hard during this period of time, so I didn't come to disturb you. Please forgive me." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Uncle Nie is too polite. You let Lady Nie move all of Rejuvenation Valley's assets in front of me, and I only have feelings of gratitude. How could I have any resentment?" Valley Head Nie said, "That's good. However, I heard that virtuous nephew Rin has been immersed in medical skills recently. I wonder how your studies are going?" When medical skills were mentioned, Zhang Xiaohua had a satisfied smile on her face and said, "Speaking of this, I still have to thank Uncle Nie again for agreeing to pass on such a miraculous technique to me." "Miraculous technique?" Valley Head Nie smiled slightly and said, "It's just a subtle technique. Only someone like me who has never seen it before would say that it's miraculous. You can ask the people in Chihuang Courtyard, how many of them would say that it's miraculous?" After this period of time together, Zhang Xiaohua naturally knew the opinions of the people in Chihuang Courtyard. Unfortunately, she was unable to explain the miraculous aspects of this medical skill, so she could only smile and say, "It seems that I have underestimated myself. However, I feel that with medical skills, you can cure all kinds of diseases in the world. There are also merits to it. Alas, the people in Jianghu all licked blood from their blades. It has always been the external injuries that bleed more and the broken arms and legs more. Even if this medical skill can cure all the people in the world, but for Rejuvenation Valley, it only has a good reputation." Valley Head Nie smiled bitterly. Yes, although the good reputation was good, it did not help one's status in Jianghu at all. It could not be blamed that Valley Head Nie did not attach importance to it. Zhang Xiaohua understood very well. Zhang Xiaohua continued to ask, "I just don't know why Valley Head Nie is looking for me today. If there is nothing, I would like to go to Senior Brother Mu to learn more. Valley Head Nye saw this and could only go straight to the point. He frowned and said, Nephew Rin, we originally agreed that you must learn the art of alchemy and learn more about the cultivation of medicinal herbs. Only then can you meet the requirements of the missionary incense cult. Only then can you sneak into the missionary incense cult. But you are only immersed in medical skills, aren't you neglecting your proper duties? If you reveal yourself in the missionary incense cult, won't you be harming others and yourself? When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she immediately understood the purpose of Valley Head Nye's visit. She smiled and said, Uncle Nye, don't worry. The books on medicinal herbs and alchemy that Miss Nye brought over, I have more or less read them. You also know that I have learned a little in the past. The first thing I learned was the medicinal herbs and alchemy that Miss Nye brought over. But because alchemy requires internal strength, in order to get your permission, I have not read it. But regarding medicinal herbs, I feel that I have learned enough and now I should be able to put it into practice. As the saying goes, practice leads to true knowledge, so I have spent most of my time learning medical skills. Furthermore, through the study of medical skills, I discovered. Zhang Xiaohua paused for a moment before continuing with a regretful tone. I discovered that medical skills are truly miraculous. They aren't any worse than alchemy. Valley Head Nye did not agree. He had been immersed in medical skills for many years and knew that he knew more than Zhang Xiaohua. So he continued to say, Nephew, how long do you think you will be studying in Shihuan Courtyard? This? Zhang Xiaohua thought for a while and said, Medical skills are broad and profound. The mystery of it is not something that can be learned in a short period of time. But I have already learned the basics of medical skills. In the future, as long as I practice more, I should be able to master it completely. Valley Head Nye was skeptical and said, Is this your own feeling or Qin Xian's words? It was Senior Apprentice Brother Mu who told me a few days ago. Zhang Xiaohua did not hide it. That's good. Nephew Rin, you should continue to study in Shihuan Courtyard for the next few days. But in your free time, you should read more books on alchemy. After a few days, I will bring you to see the real core of Rejuvenation Valley, and see how this alchemy is made. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed and said, That's great. I will follow Uncle Nye's arrangements. -3. Chapter 450. When Mu Qinxian of the Chihuan Courtyard heard the news that Zhang Xiaohua was going to the Inner Valley, he was very reluctant. He knew that Zhang Xiaohua was able to learn medicine to such an extent in just a month. Her future achievements were absolutely limitless. Even his master might not be able to compare with her. However, this was Jianghu. Zhang Xiaohua was first a martial arts master, then a compassionate doctor. Therefore, although he was wringing his hands and sighing at the disappearance of a godly doctor, he did not do anything unnecessary to stop her. In the last few days, he carefully explained his medical experience to Zhang Xiaohua. He also taught her some of his works and precious ancient books. Zhang Xiaohua was also confused by Mu Qinxian. She was just going to the Inner Valley to see the alchemy. It was not like she would never come back to the Chihuan Courtyard again. Was there a need to be like this? However, this was a good opportunity to learn. Zhang Xiaohua also listened very seriously, absorbing the essence of this magical medical skill. After a few more days, Mu Qinxian said, Ren Xiaoxia, this medical skill, I have almost finished. People have 7 emotions: happiness, anger, worry, longing, sorrow, fear, shock. There are also 5 internal organs: heart, lungs, liver, spleen, and kidney. They all contain the 5 elements. Happiness belongs to fire, the heart belongs to the 5 internal organs. Anger belongs to wood, the liver belongs to the 5 internal organs. Worry and sorrow belong to metal, the lungs belong to the 5 internal organs. Longing belongs to earth, the spleen belongs to the 5 internal organs. Fear and shock belong to water, the kidneys belong to the 5 internal organs. The 5 elements can be seen. Wood restrains earth, earth restrains water, water restrains fire, fire restrains metal, and metal restrains wood. Therefore, anger restrains thought. Thought restrains fear or shock restrains joy. Joy restrains worry or sorrow, and worry restrains grief and anger. Of course, the 5 elements are not only restrains, but also engenders, multiplies, regrets, and so on. Mu Qingxuan's summary of the 5 elements of medicine made Zhang Xiaohua's heart itch. She thought, isn't this the heavenly law of the 5 elements? She calmed her heart and slowly savored it. After Mu Qingxian finished talking about the 5 elements of medicine, he did not stop. He continued, Yang on the outside, Yin on the inside, Yang on the top, Yin on the bottom, Yang on the back, Yin on the inside, Yang on the skin, Yang on the outside, Yin on the inside, Yang on the head, Yang on the top, Yin on the bottom. When the human body's Yin and Yang lose balance, there will be various symptoms. The ancient people's classification of symptoms will be represented by Yin. Yang syndrome, general symptoms, fever, thirst, rapid pulse, fast, etc. These symptoms are also known by the ancients as heat, that is Yang syndrome. Yin syndrome, the general symptoms are no fever, no thirst, cold hands and feet, slow pulse, etc. These symptoms are also known as cold or Yin. There are many types of medicinal herbs, but their properties are mostly Yin and Yang. In terms of medicinal properties, cold, heat, warm, cool, cool, and cold, cool. Warm is Yang, cold is Yin. In terms of treatment, the general principle is to adjust Yin and Yang, and balance it out. This is the basic starting point of treatment. Regarding the rise and fall of Yin and Yang, we take measures to make up for the deficiency and eliminate the excess, so that the abnormal phenomenon of Yin and Yang can be corrected, and restore the relative balance. This was the theory of Yin and Yang in medicine. Zhang Xiaohua had compared the 5 elements of medicine with the 5 elements of heaven, and had benefited a lot. At this time, after listening to the theory of Yin and Yang, and comparing it with the way of life and death of heaven, she felt that it was quite consistent. She felt that everything was very clear, and it was very enlightening. But when he heard the key part, Mu Qingxian suddenly stopped. Zhang Xiaohua could not help but anxiously ask, Senior brother Mu, why don't you continue? Mu Qingxian was also surprised. This is what I have comprehended for many years, and also all the records in the existing books. Could it be that Ren Xiaoxia still feels that it is not enough? Zhang Xiaohua frowned. As Senior brother Mu said, I feel that the content is very profound, and the mysteries are indescribable, but... When Mu Qingxian heard this, he shamefully said, It seems that Ren Xiaoxia is really a heaven-sent genius. I really can't compare. Just now I said so much, but a lot of it was from the book. I know that Ren Xiaoxia's time is limited, so I told him what I understood, and what I saw. If Ren Xiaoxia has any questions, you can look at the book I gave you. If there are still no answers, then you can only study it yourself. Oh, so it's like that. Zhang Xiaohua somewhat understood. This theory of Yin and Yang had always been based on one's own personal opinion. If one blindly agreed with others, it might not be suitable for oneself. She had the understanding of heaven, so as long as she found the right direction, would there be a time when she would not be able to understand it? So, Zhang Xiaohua stood up and deeply bowed. Many thanks to Senior Brother Mu for teaching me. Mu Qingxian didn't dare accept it, so he also quickly stood up and returned the courtesy. Ren Xiaoxia's medical skills are incomparable to ordinary people, but unfortunately, you have more important things to do. What a pity, what a pity! Zhang Xiaohua smiled, but didn't answer. What she pursued was the heavenly Tao, so she could better understand it through her medical skills. If it was purely for her medical skills, it would be making a big fuss over a minor issue. Mu Qingxian then said, Today, Master told me that Ren Xiaoxia doesn't need to come here tomorrow. Junior sister will go look for you, and she might go to the inner valley to practice alchemy. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she nodded. Many thanks to Senior Brother Mu for telling me. I will take my leave now. When I have free time in the future, I will come again to ask Senior Brother for advice on the 5 elements, and Yin and Yang. Naturally, Mu Qingxian agreed. The next day, Zhang Xiaohua finished practicing the Big Dipper fist art in the courtyard and didn't go out. She sat cross-legged in her room and combined her gains from the past 10 days with her own understanding of the heavenly Tao. Time slowly passed by. Suddenly, Zhang Xihua's heart moved, and she opened her eyes with a smile. Sure enough, she saw Nie Qianyu briskly coming in from the outside. Before she entered, she shouted, "Big Brother Ren, Big Brother Ren!" Zhang Xiahua stood up and skillfully put the green praying mat into his money pouch. He smiled and replied, "It's here. Little fish Nye, if you keep shouting like that, this pavilion is going to collapse because of you." Nie Qianyu entered and sweetly smiled. "Big Brother Ren has been studying medicine with Senior Brother Mu at the Qi Huang courtyard. Aren't the doctors all old men with bad hearing? Presumably, Big Brother Ren will also be affected by this deafness. If I lower my voice, I'm afraid you won't be able to hear me." Zhang Xiahua covered her ears and said, "Since you said so, I will have to pay more attention. If I can't hear Little Fish's cute voice in the future, what should I do?" Nie Qianyu's face reddened, and she almost spat out, but she immediately said, "Let's go, Big Brother Ren. My father has been waiting for a long time. Didn't you want to go to the inner valley and learn alchemy? Let's go now." "Okay." Zhang Xiahua slightly nodded. "Then let's go. As the younger generation, we shouldn't let the elders wait for too long." Hearing this, Nie Qianyu's heart was filled with sweetness. She was happier than being directly praised. Outside the peach blossom forest, Valley Master Nie was already standing with his hands behind his back. He looked at the two of them from afar as they chatted and laughed. There was an imperceptible smile at the corner of his mouth. Zhang Xiahua approached and bowed. Valley Master Nie did not stand on ceremony and said with a smile, "Yesterday, I heard from Qin Xian that he was very reluctant to let you go and wanted to pass on his medical skills to you. Sai, this disciple of mine is not young anymore, but the way she does things is a little pedantic. Medical skills can heal people, but not many people will benefit from it. On the other hand, the art of alchemy can benefit everyone, and it is also useful for the doctor's own cultivation. If this art of alchemy is useful for cultivation, how can I, as an elder, not teach you with all my heart?" Zhang Xiahua smiled and said, "Senior Brother Mu is a warm-hearted person. His reputation in Vao City isn't any worse than Uncle Nie's. His martial arts aren't strong, but he has saved countless lives. This is something that young people like us should admire and learn from. After refining the alchemy, if I have time, I would like to seek advice from Senior Brother Mu. Oh, if there is anything I do not understand, I would like to seek advice from Uncle Nie." Seeing that his advice was ineffective, Valley Master Nie shook his head slightly and said, "When I saw you before, I felt that you were very mature from your voice and the way you do things. Now that I see the passion and impulsiveness of a young person, it is rare. I will leave it to you. Nephew Rin, you must remember that there is an order in learning, there is a specialization in the profession. Do not neglect the essentials for some unattainable things." After hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua's heart warmed. Even though Valley Master Nie's tone was obviously reprimanding, but there was more concern and worry in his tone. Zhang Xiahua bowed and said, "This nephew has learned and will remember it in his heart." "Father." Nie Qianyu was unhappy and said, "Brother Rin is kind and willing to save people. Look at what you are saying, you are making a fuss over nothing." Valley Master Nie smiled and said, "Xiao Yu." He seemed to want to say something, but then thought of something and only shook his head. Seeing this, Nie Qianyu walked forward and hugged Valley Master Nie's arm and said coquettishly, "Father, if you have something to say, just say it. Why are you being so secretive?" Zhang Xiaohua knew Nie Qianyu, but he had only seen her calmness and intelligence. He had never seen her act like a little girl. He was dumbfounded. Isn't she just a 12-year-old child? Why did she say she was 16? Did she lie to me again? Valley Master Nie said dotingly, "It's nothing. I just thought of the past. Forget it, let's not talk about it. Your brother Rin will laugh if he hears." As expected, Nie Qianyu obediently stopped asking. Thus, the three people left the peach forest and headed towards the inner valley. Speaking of the inner valley, Zhang Xiaohua had already scanned it with his spiritual sense on the second day after he had arrived at Rejuvenation Valley. He understood most of the things in the valley. Now that he had personally entered the valley, it was less mysterious. However, even though he had already scanned it with his spiritual sense, when he stood at the entrance of the valley and saw it with his own eyes, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion at the uncanny workmanship of nature. This was a huge valley surrounded by towering rock walls. There were no passageways leading down. Even if one had superb qigong, they wouldn't be able to move around freely. Moreover, as soon as they entered the valley, a warm fragrance hit them in the face, making them feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. The temperature in the valley was obviously different from the temperature outside. Zhang Xiaohua frowned and asked softly, "Uncle Mie, this valley seems to -3. Chapter 451. Zhang Xiaohua frowned and asked, "Uncle Mie, the temperature inside the valley seems to be a bit higher than outside. Is it because of alchemy?" Valley Master Nye smiled and said, "Nephew Rin is really attentive. The temperature in this season is exactly the same as outside the valley. I thought you couldn't feel it. In fact, if you come here in winter, you will clearly see the difference." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and somewhat understood. She said, "Is the temperature inside the valley not the same as outside the valley?" "It's really like that. This valley is like spring all year round and the temperature is the same all year round. Otherwise, why would my Rejuvenation Valley be named Rejuvenation?" Nye Qianyu said with a smile. The three people continued to move forward. Valley Master Nye introduced, "This inner valley is quite large. It's more than 10 miles in all directions. There are countless rare herbs planted in it. 3 to 5 miles to the left of the valley entrance is a place that the disciples of the valley often go to. Further in is some primitive jungle where some birds and beasts live. Oh, the mountain villas, 4 odd beasts were found there." Zhang Xiaohua nodded. She had already used her divine sense to scan that place. The inside was overgrown with lush vegetation and there were many wild birds and beasts. It seemed that it was also a rare place. Valley Master Nye pointed to the boundless medicinal field in front of them and said, "This is the core of my Rejuvenation Valley. There are all kinds of herbs planted here. Because the inner valley is like spring all year round, my Rejuvenation Valley's herbs are world famous. Of course, it is also these herbs that have created the reputation of my Rejuvenation Valley's alchemy." Speaking of this, Valley Master Nye's face was full of pride. Zhang Xiaohua nodded. She had stayed in Rejuvenation Valley for so long, of course, she knew its position in Jianghu. In the past, when O Yen of Huanxi Mountain Villa encountered a problem with herbs, didn't she also come to Rejuvenation Valley for help? However, Rejuvenation Valley's alchemy area was between the mountain walls of the inner valley. Her divine sense couldn't penetrate deep and she didn't know the contents. Looking at Valley Master Nye's appearance, he should be very powerful. Then, Zhang Xiaohua pointed to the mountain wall on the right and said with a smile, "Uncle Mie, I see many disciples going in and out of the mountain wall on the left. It must be where our Rejuvenation Valley's alchemy area is. But here? What's the use of silence?" Valley Master Nye looked at the stone wall on the right and then looked at Zhang Xiaohua. He said in a serious tone, "Nephew Rin, you are not an outsider, so there is no harm in telling you. The people who live in the stone wall on the left are all the previous generations of Rejuvenation Valley's experts. They are now old and have long stopped caring about affairs. They are living out their remaining years in this place that is like spring all year round." "I see." Zhang Xiaohua nodded thoughtfully. In fact, he had already seen it clearly when he was scanning with his spiritual sense, but he was not sure. Although Rejuvenation Valley wasn't a great sect, it still had a history of 1,000 years. It didn't make sense to say that there wasn't an expert overseeing the valley. However, Zhang Xiaohua immediately thought of the Misty School. The Misty School was a large sect with immortal inheritance. No matter what, they should have some foundation. Where were the experts of the previous generation? Why was it that even though the ethereal sect had been annihilated, there wasn't a single person standing up for them? It was really strange. Then, Uncle Nye, how many of our Rejuvenation Valley seniors are still living in the valley? Zhang Xiaohua asked casually. This? Valley Master Nye was a little embarrassed. He looked at Nye Qianyu and said, Nephew Rin, you are not an outsider, but this is our Rejuvenation Valley's secret. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly understood and said, Uncle Nye, if it's a secret, it's better not to say it. Actually, the climate in the valley is very pleasant. Moreover, in my Rejuvenation Valley, I don't dare to say anything else, but there are many herbs that can prolong one's life and nourish one's body. Therefore, there really are many seniors living here. In addition, Valley Master Nye said mysteriously, Nephew Rin, don't look at my ordinary martial arts. Rejuvenation Valley also has its own unique skills. In the past, there were many top-ranked experts in the pugilistic world in our Rejuvenation Valley. He looked like he was showing off. Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. Nye Qianyu pointed to the herb garden not far in front and said, Brother Rin, look, this is the main ingredient for refining the blood-replenishing pill. If it is a year old, it is not very useful. The blood-replenishing pill uses Gastrodia tuber that is more than 5 years old. The Rejuvenation Valley's climate is stable and is most conducive to the growth of herbs. Moreover, for some reason, the herbs in the inner valley grow better than those in the outer valley. Zhang Xiaohua walked closer and slightly released her divine sense. Of course, the qi of heaven and earth in the inner valley was more than 3 times that of the outer valley. How could these herbs not grow well? Looking at the terrain of the inner valley and the dense herbs, it was inevitable that the qi of heaven and earth could gather here. That's right. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly realized and said, Valley Master Nye, why is the climate in the inner valley like this? Valley Master Nye smiled but did not speak. Nye Qianyu said, When Brother Rin enters this stone wall and sees how Rejuvenation Valley refined pills, you will naturally know. Below the stone wall on the left, there were dozens of small caves. Disciples of Rejuvenation Valley entered and exited from time to time. When they saw the Valley Master, they all bowed and saluted. Walking closer, Valley Master Nye pointed at these caves and said with a smile, Nephew Ren, this is where Rejuvenation Valley refined pills. Why don't you guess why there are so many caves? Zhang Xiaohua was startled. She thought for a moment and shook her head, saying, I don't know that different caves have different functions. Nye Qianyu said, Brother Ren, don't think too much. Just a simple guess and you will know. Zhang Xiaohua was about to shake her head when her mind lit up. She said with a smile, Could it be that different pills are in different caves? Nye Qianyu immediately applauded and said, Like I said, Big Brother Ren is thinking too much. The way of alchemy is not as magical as what is written in the books. Big Brother Rin will definitely be able to guess it from a simple way of thinking. Not as magical as it is written in the books? Zhang Xiaohua was startled and a question arose in her heart. Could it be that Rejuvenation Valley's pill refining techniques were different from what was written in the books? When Valley Master Nye and Nye Qianyu led Zhang Xiaohua into a random cave, Zhang Xiaohua was immediately stunned by the scene in front of her. Yes, that's right. She stood there blankly and did not move at all. Valley Master Nye and Nye Qianyu did not find it strange when they saw this. They just quietly waited for her to react. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua touched her nose and asked with a wry smile, Uncle Nye, this is the place you said to refine pills? Then she said to Nye Qianyu, This is the normal part of refining pills that you said? Nye Qianyu said with a smile, That's right. Refining pills is just like this. However, are you shocked by Rejuvenation Valley's generosity? That's right, that's right. Zhang Xiaohua looked around carefully. She even released her divine sense and looked around again and again. Everyone, what do you think is the scene that Zhang Xiaohua saw? It actually made the successor of the immortal Tao, Zhang Xiaohua, who had truly refined the fasting pill, so surprised? She saw that this was a rather large cave. It was slender and long. On the mountain wall in front of Zhang Xiaohua, there were more than 10 grooves. On each groove were cauldrons of different sizes, similar to the cauldrons in Zhang Xiaohua's purse. At this moment, A green-red flame was spitting out from under the cauldrons and was burning the cauldrons. Above the cauldrons, there was actually countless amounts of water vapor floating up. Was this brewing medicine or refining pills? It was no wonder that Zhang Xiaohua was dumbfounded. This is the difference you said to be from the books? Zhang Xiaohua, who had regained her senses, turned to ask Nie Qianyu. Nie Qianyu nodded affirmatively. When Valley Master Nie saw this, he explained. What is written in the alchemy books are all theories. In fact, many of them cannot be practiced. For example, it is impossible to freely control the temperature of the cauldrons. Looking at the green-red flame under the cauldrons, Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense chased after it. After a while, she nodded slightly. Valley Master Nie continued. Nephew Rin should have seen Qi Huang Courtyard's brewing medicine. Previously, we were also unable to control the temperature of the cauldrons. When it was casually burned, the medicinal herbs would turn into ashes. How could it be refined into pills? Therefore, with the help of the water, the essence of the medicinal herbs would be forced out. When the water dried up, the essence would also be left at the bottom of the cauldrons. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly understood and said, Brewing medicine is to boil the medicinal power of the medicinal herbs in water. When the patient takes it, the patient will be cured. What is left at the bottom of the cauldron is the medicinal dregs. This so-called refining pill is only the medicinal herbs. There is no residue left. Oh, that's not right, Uncle Nie. Although the medicinal herbs are mostly the leaves and fruits of plants, and are not as dry as medicinal herbs, there are still impurities. Is the essence left at the bottom of the cauldron the essence? Valley Master Nie pointed to the water vapor and said, A lot of impurities have been boiled out with the water vapor. There are very few impurities left. In her divine sense, Zhang Xiaohua could feel the vitality of the essence of the plants in the water vapor above the cauldrons. How could this be impurities? It was clearly the main component of the pill. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua understood why Nie Qianyu said that the Rejuvenation Valley's fasting pill could only cure hunger for 1 or 2 days. It turned out that the essence of the sealwort had been boiled away by the method of brewing medicine. Zhang Xiaohua was speechless and only murmured, But does the essence of the medicinal herbs also run away with the water vapor? Valley Master Nie replied awkwardly, This is inevitable. If you don't boil it in water, you won't get anything. If you boil it in water, you can get some. At this time, Nie Qianyu said, Big Brother Ren, don't you feel curious about the fire under the cauldron without using dry firewood? Zhang Xiaohua immediately looked surprised and said, Little fishy Nie, if you didn't mention it, I really wouldn't have cared. Now tell me, where does this fire come from? Nie Qianyu also looked proud and said, Big Brother Rin doesn't know that there are many passages under this valley that lead directly to the underground earth fire. The flames that my Rejuvenation Valley uses to refine pills use the earth fire directly through these passages. So it's like this, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Then is this the reason why the cauldron's temperature is not easy to control? Valley Master Nie nodded and said, Really, we can't use this earth fire. The cost of ordinary flames is too high. Although Rejuvenation Valley is rich, we can't not consider increasing our income and reducing our expenditure. Ah! Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. -3. Chapter 452. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she saw the steaming hot and misty interior of the cave. How was this refining pills? It was more like boiling pills. The 10 cauldrons in the cave were huge replicas of the boiling pots in Qi Huang Courtyard. Sigh, people's imaginations were really endless. Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. Seeing Valley Head Nie's complacent expression and Nie Qianyu's proud expression, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't bear to discourage them. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua asked, Uncle Nie, what kind of pills are being refined in this cave? Nie Qianyu smiled and said, Brother Ren, why don't you guess? Zhang Xiaohua sniffed and said, This cave is filled with the smell of Gastrodia elata. I remember that Gastrodia elata is the main ingredient in the blood-replenishing pill recipe. Presumably, The pills being refined here are the blood-replenishing pill. Valley Head Nia's eyes flashed with a satisfied light and said, Nephew Rin guessed correctly. This blood-replenishing pill is a commonly used pill in the Jianghu and is also the flagship product of Rejuvenation Valley. The technique and process are also the most mature. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and carefully observed the operation of the Rejuvenation Valley disciple. She saw that the water in the cauldron in front of her was almost finished boiling. The disciple activated a mechanism at the groove beside the cauldron, and the green-red flame immediately became much smaller. After a while, only the sticky essence at the bottom of the cauldron was left. The disciple adjusted the flame again and almost turned it off. Then, he dug at the bottom of the cauldron, and the sticky essence fell into a box. The disciple reached out and took it from the bottom of the cauldron. Then, he skillfully used 3 fingers of his right hand to pinch it in a spoon. His fingers moved and a famous blood-replenishing pill from Rejuvenation Valley was formed. The disciple didn't even turn his head. With a wave of his hand, the pill was thrown into a small plate. The plate was already filled with pills of equal size. When the other disciples saw that the plate was full, they immediately replaced it with an empty plate. They brought the plate filled with pills to the side of the cave entrance. There were already several plates filled with pills. A few female disciples were busy putting the pills in the plates into the empty porcelain bottles. Zhang Xiaohua laughed in her heart. Ha ha ha, I didn't think that the famous blood-replenishing pill in Jianghu would be refined like this. At this time, a person's image suddenly appeared in his mind. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but think, if that guy Ma Jing were to concoct this blood-replenishing pill, what kind of effect would it have? Ha! Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua almost burst out laughing. Seeing this, Nie Qianyu asked in astonishment, Big Brother Rin, is there something wrong with the refining of this blood-replenishing pill? Why do you look so? Zhang Xiaohua covered his mouth and said with difficulty, It's nothing, little Yuer. I just thought of some ridiculous things. Nie Qianyu couldn't help but spit. What ridiculous things are you thinking of for no reason? You're really not serious. Valley Master Nie scolded. Little Yu, your big brother Ren's own sect also has a place to refine pills. How can he give us any reasonable suggestions? Then, he looked at Zhang Xiaohua with a smile and said, Don't you think so? Nephew Rin. Zhang Xiaohua scratched his head, thought for a while and said, Uncle Nie really thinks too highly of me. However, he immediately said, If Uncle Nie still has a free cave, I would like to practice. Valley Master Nie asked curiously, Can't you do it here? There should be a free cauldron over there. If Nephew Rin wants to learn, how about learning while refining pills there? Zhang Xiaohua shook his head and said, I've already looked carefully just now. Although Uncle Nie's pill refining process is similar to what is described in the book in theory, the operation is completely different. If it's just this pill refining, I've practiced a lot in Shi Huang Courtyard and am confident that I can do it with ease. Then Nephew Ren's meaning is? I want to use Rejuvenation Valley's cauldron and this earth fire to refine the pill according to what is recorded in the book. Valley Master Nie nodded and said, Nephew Ren's thoughts are very correct. What others say can only be used as a reference. Everything has to be done yourself to understand the fundamentals. Then, with a face full of expectation, he said, Stones from other mountains can be used to polish jade. If Nephew Rin can combine his sex pill refining method with Rejuvenation Valleys and solve the problem of temperature control, it can be said to be a great kindness to Rejuvenation Valley. It can even be said to be an outstanding contribution to the entire Jianghu. Of course, Valley Master Nie's words revealed a kind of encouragement, like a senior's hope for a junior. Zhang Xiaohua's heart moved and she said with a smile, Uncle Nie is in this situation, and may not be able to fully understand the reasons. I will definitely do my best, and hope that I can give Uncle some advice. Nie Qianyu looked at Zhang Xiaohua with a smile. Others might not know, but she knew that her father had thought of countless ways to refine the pill, but he had always hit a wall. Although Zhang Xiaohua's martial arts were strong, she didn't think that she could surpass her father in the art of pill refining. However, Zhang Xiaohua was so dedicated to learning the art of pill refining and even said that she would solve Rejuvenation Valley's problem. Although she knew that the possibility was not high, she still felt sweet in her heart. Valley Master Nye thought for a moment, and ordered a disciple to bring over some ingredients for the blood-replenishing pill. He handed them to Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Nephew Ren, since you don't want to stay here, then please follow me." After he finished speaking, he led Zhang Xiaohua and Nye Qianyu out of the cave and went towards the left side of the mountain wall. The left side of the mountain wall was different from the right side. There were only a few caves at the beginning, and further in, there were some thatched cottages and small courtyards built on the mountain wall. It was unknown whether there were caves inside. Valley Master Nye didn't explain to Zhang Xiaohua and went straight into the first cave. Zhang Xiaohua followed in and looked around. This cave was the same as the one they had just entered, but it was much smaller and tidier. Nye Qianyu explained, "Brother Ren, this cave is Father's alchemy room. Normally, the valley's disciples are not allowed to enter without permission." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and continued to walk forward. At the end of the alchemy room, there was a row of 3 cauldrons placed in a groove. The one in the middle was slightly larger, and the 2 beside it were smaller. Walking closer, Valley Master Nye smiled and said, "Nephew, this is where this old man usually performs alchemy. The earth fire here is much purer than other places, and the fire power is much stronger. More importantly, it is much easier to control." Zhang Xiaohua cursed in her heart. "What's the use of the earth fire for decocting pills? It's just boiling water. No matter how well you control it, it will only make the water boil earlier." Valley Master Nye walked to the front of the groove and opened the mechanism of the earth fire. Sure enough, what came out was a cyan flame. The quality of the flame was much better than before. Then, Valley Master Nye explained how to use the mechanism and the cauldron. He smiled and said, "Nephew Rin, the art of alchemy should be practiced by yourself. Nephew Rin has read many books and presumably, you already have a card up your sleeve. If you want to try it out, then use this blood-replenishing pill as a practice pill. I still have some matters to attend to in the outer valley, so I won't teach you step by step. Xiao Yu has been practicing alchemy with me since young and is already proficient. Let her watch over you." Zhang Xiaohua bowed and said, "I don't dare to trouble Uncle Nye too much. If you have something to do, then go ahead." Valley Master Nye looked at Nye Qianyu and said, "If the things in the inner valley are useful, then let your big brother Rin use them. Teach him with all your heart." After saying that, he deliberately winked at her. Nye Qianyu blushed and said, "I know. Father, you go ahead. Leave this to me." Valley Master Nye laughed and swaggered away. When Valley Master Nye walked out of the alchemy room, Zhang Xiaohua threw the herbs in her hand to the ground and walked to the groove. She carefully observed the mechanism of the fire-spitting mechanism. She enlarged and then reduced the cyan flame before carefully observing the cauldron. This cauldron was very similar to the one in Zhang Xiaohua's purse. It was just that there were 2 protrusions on the outside of the cauldron which looked very abrupt. Looking inside the cauldron, the inner walls were smooth but there were no slots for primordial stones. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua released her divine sense and carefully scanned the cauldron. She didn't find any fluctuations of primordial qi. It seemed that this cauldron wasn't used by the Tao of Immortality, but was truly a product of the Tao of Martial Arts. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but feel a little confused. The internal strength and pressure points she encountered before were all Tao of Martial Arts that imitated the Tao of Immortality. They all had extremely effective power. Why did this alchemy technique directly become pill frying when it reached the Tao of Martial Arts? But in the records of Rejuvenation Valley, it didn't specifically say that the temperature of Mi Gao's alchemy couldn't be controlled. Of course, there was an essential difference between Tao of Martial Arts and Tao of Immortality. That was that the foundation of Tao of Immortality's alchemy was the incantation. But Tao of Martial Arts didn't have such a saying. Tao of Martial Arts only refined the essence of the herbs. But even so, one couldn't directly change the incantation to frying. On the side, Nye Qianyu saw that Zhang Xiaohua was deep in thought and asked in a low voice, Big Brother Ren, do you need me to add water for you? I'll tell you the steps of the operation while boiling the water. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and shook her head, saying, Are these two protrusions the places where I inject internal strength to control the temperature? Nie Qianyu said, Big Brother Ren, are you really going to use the ancient method? It's really not easy to control the temperature. However, she immediately thought that her father couldn't control it well. Perhaps his internal strength wasn't strong enough. Renbaqian might not necessarily be unable to do it. She immediately said, Of course, Big Brother Ren's internal strength is superb, so it might not be difficult. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and asked, How can I inject internal strength into these two protrusions and even control the temperature? Only when one's internal strength is cultivated to the stage of perfection can it leave the body. Nie Qianyu explained, Big Brother Ren, have you forgotten? Didn't I tell you before that the armament refining sect can refine weapons that can increase one's inner strength? This cauldron for refining pills was specially made by the armament refining sect for my rejuvenation valley. As long as one injects inner strength into the protrusion, one's inner strength can leave the body and control the temperature in the cauldron. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly understood. The way of immortality was to control the amount of heaven and earth yuan qi in the cauldron to control the flame and temperature of the cauldron. The way of martial arts was to directly use internal energy to control the cauldron to control the temperature. However, one was to control the foundation of the flame, while the other was to isolate the flame. The difference was obvious. Please vote. Come and read more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. -3. Chapter 453. After she finished thinking, Zhang Xiaohua placed her hands on the protruding part of the cauldron and channeled her true qi into it. The cauldron was also very peculiar. With the manipulation of her true qi, the temperature inside the cauldron could actually be controlled at will. Isn't this very easy to control? Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but frown. After practicing for a while more, Zhang Xiaohua turned the earth fire to the maximum. She placed one hand on the protruding part of the cauldron and used her true qi to control the temperature inside the cauldron. Her other hand followed the instructions of the blood-replenishing pills prescription and threw the medicinal herbs into the cauldron one by one to refine the impurities inside. Not long after, all the medicinal herbs were thrown in. Only then did Zhang Xiaohua place her hands on the protruding part and slowly refine the pills with a gentle flame according to the records of the martial art refining technique. Nie Qianyu watched Zhang Xiaohua methodically throw the medicinal herbs into the cauldron and was extremely astonished. How was this the first time she was practicing? When she saw Zhang Xiaohua place her hands on the cauldron and refine the pills with her eyes closed, she had long since spat in her heart. This fellow actually hid it from me. She must have practiced for a few days in the sect. If she didn't understand Zhang Xiaohua's temperament and knew that she was a magnanimous person, she would have doubted Zhang Xiaohua's intentions for coming to Rejuvenation Valley. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, Zhang Xiaohua opened her eyes slightly and looked at the dark red powder floating in the cauldron. She knew that the refinement had been completed. One of her hands left the protruding part and was about to form a hand seal when she heard Nie Qianyu say gently, Big Brother Ren, did you mess up your acting? Did you refine all the medicinal herbs into ashes? Only then did Zhang Xiaohua realize that he was practicing alchemy on the martial Dao, and there were no techniques for alchemy on the martial Dao. Thus, Zhang Xiaohua withdrew her hand seal and turned her head with a smile. Little fish Nie, you've underestimated me. Look, isn't the refinement complete? With that, he turned off the earth fire. Nie Qianyu was stunned when she heard this. She walked over in disbelief and looked at the dark red powder at the bottom of the cauldron. Then, she moved the bottom of the cauldron, and the powder fell into a box. Nie Qianyu took out the box and looked at it carefully. She put it in front of her nose and sniffed it. Then, she pinched a little bit of the powder with her fingers and put it in her mouth to taste. She exclaimed, Big Brother Ren, how did you do it? Zhang Xiaohua shrugged with an innocent look on his face. I'm just a person with good character. Bah! Nie Qianyu spat and said happily, Big brother Rin, wait for a moment. I'll go look for my father. Then, without waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to respond, she ran out lightly. Hey! Zhang Xiaohua raised his hand to stop her, but Nie Qianyu had already run out. How could she hear him? However, when Valley Master Nie came over, how was he going to explain to him that he could refine the herbs so easily? To be honest, refining pills in martial arts was not difficult for Zhang Xiaohua. It was just controlling the temperature of the cauldron. It was much easier than controlling the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and making hand gestures. But why was Valley Master Nie unable to control the temperature at will, but she could? Was it because she was already proficient in controlling the flame, or was it because of the difference between vital energy and internal energy? Moreover, there was no boiling method in refining pills in martial arts. Presumably, the ancestors of martial arts were also able to control the flame freely. Was it because Valley Master Nie did not practice enough? Looking at this single pill room and Nie Qianyu's extremely experienced eyesight, Zhang Xiaohua knew that Valley Master Nie had also practiced for a long time. Perhaps there was only the difference between vital energy and internal energy. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly thought of the enchanting finger. This cultivation method recorded the method of using internal energy to simulate vital energy. If she used the internal energy to control the cauldron, would it be easier to refine the real pills in martial arts? Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua did not have internal energy, so she could only think about it. Nie Qianyu did not come back. Zhang Xiaohua had to look around in boredom in the pill room. She saw that in the corner of the pill room, there was a bed and a chair. Presumably, it was where Valley Master Nie rested when he was tired. Zhang Xiaohua walked over. There were a few alchemy books on the table, as well as a few other things scattered around. Zhang Xiaohua's gaze quickly landed on a square piece of jade placed on top of the book. He reached out and picked it up. Using his divine sense, he scanned it. Alas, it was a pity that this piece of jade only had a weak yuan qi left. Although there were records inside, he could not read them clearly. Zhang Xiaohua's heart moved. Since there were ancient jade slips in the pill room, perhaps there were in other places as well. If she had the chance, she would walk around the valley more and use her spiritual sense to take a good look. Just as she was thinking, she saw a black shadow rush in from outside the pill room. A pleasantly surprised voice sounded. "Virtuous nephew Rin, this blood-replenishing pill was really refined by you. Please, elder, this is only the powder of the blood-replenishing pill." Zhang Xiaohua secretly said in her heart, but she said, "It was refined by me just now." The person who came in was Valley Master Nie. He was still holding the box of powder in his hand. His face was filled with disbelief, but his eyes also flashed with a pleasantly surprised expression. That was a pill that had been boiled in water. Much of the medicinal power had been evaporated with the steam, leaving behind impurities. How could it compare to the essence that had been refined by pure earth fire? Although the powder in Valley Master Nie's hand could not compare to the pills that Zhang Xiaohua had refined using the Immortal Dao technique, it was one of a kind in Rejuvenation Valley. Valley Master Nie sighed and said, "Virtuous nephew Ren, can you refine it again in front of me?" Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "I will listen to uncle's instructions." Valley Master Nie nodded and poured the powder in the box into a porcelain bottle. He then placed the box under the cauldron. Zhang Xiaohua turned on the earth fire and adjusted it to the maximum. Then, she followed the steps just now and very easily refined the various medicinal herbs into the blood-replenishing pill that Valley Master Nie spoke of. At this time, Nie Qianyu also had a pleasantly surprised expression and slowly rushed back from outside. It turned out that Valley Master Nie had received the news that Zhang Xiaohua had successfully refined the blood-replenishing pill. He had left Nie Qianyu behind and used his Qigong to come to the inner valley first. When he saw with his own eyes that Zhang Xiaohua had easily refined the blood-replenishing pill, Valley Master Nie could no longer hold back and personally went into the field. He really did not dare to believe that with the same cauldron and the same earth fire, how could Zhang Xiaohua succeed while he had studied for several years and still not understand the main points? However, reality told him that this had nothing to do with character. Valley Master Nye still did not control it well and turned all the medicinal herbs into ashes. Seeing the expected result, Valley Master Nye was very depressed. He extinguished the earth fire and turned his head to look at Zhang Xiaohua. His eyes flashed with expectation and he opened his mouth but did not know what to say. Obviously, to be able to refine the real blood replenishing pill, it had nothing to do with technique or medicinal herbs. The only possibility was internal energy, or the technique of using internal energy. This seemed to be Zhang Xiaohua's sex secret, and was not something that an outsider like him could know. However, Valley Master Nye still did not give up. Even if he did not know Zhang Xiaohua's sex internal energy cultivation method, at least she could tell him where the flaws were. Seeing this, Nie Qianyu could only step forward and ask softly, "Big Brother Ren, my father has already studied for more than 10 years and did not succeed. This is why he has always followed the previous tradition and used water to replace the direct refinement. Since you can easily refine these medicinal herbs, you must know the secret behind it. Do you know?" Nie Qianyu also did not want to make things difficult for Zhang Xiaohua with her following request. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua muttering to herself, Valley Master Nye asked, "Nephew Rin, you have already been in Rejuvenation Valley for several months and have been with little you for even longer. I am very assured of you, so I have never asked your sect. If this reason is related to your sect's cultivation method or other secret things, my Rejuvenation Valley is willing to exchange for it with the same value and is also willing to form an alliance with your sect." Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua laughed in her heart. "What sect do I have? Perhaps it is the Misty School. But even the Misty School does not know this cultivation method, and I also cannot teach Valley Master Nye the cultivation method of the Immortal Tao. However, could she teach Valley Master Nye the cultivation method of Bewitching Finger, that simulated vital energy?" This was the main reason why Zhang Xiaohua was muttering to herself. However, the Righteous Alliance was now her enemy, and she had obtained his cultivation method. Of course, she did not mind teaching it to others. As long as she found it pleasing to the eye, she would give it to others for her own pleasure. Moreover, if she could let Rejuvenation Valley master this cultivation method, on one hand, she could increase Valley Master Nye's martial arts cultivation. On the other hand, she could refine a true martial arts medicinal pill. This could also be considered as repaying his kindness for teaching her. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua made up her mind and said, "Uncle Nye, my sect is the Beta School. I think that we live in seclusion and are not known by the Jianghu. I presume that you have not heard of it either." Valley Master Nye nodded. Indeed, he had never heard of such a name before. He then smiled and said, "Although I have not heard of this name, from Nephew Ren, not only can I see the depth of your sect's inner strength, but you also have a method of teaching. Even if Nephew Rin cannot reveal the secret of refining pills, Rejuvenation Valley is still very willing to form an alliance with Beta's school and advance and retreat together in the Jianghu." Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, "Why can I refine pills and Uncle Nye cannot? I have a trace of understanding in my heart. However, whether or not this is the case, I do not know. I can only try first." Valley Master Nye was overjoyed and said, "Then how can I try?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Our sect has a method of using inner strength. It has the most miraculous effect and can control the flow of inner strength very well. I used this method to control the temperature of the cauldron just now. I think that if Uncle Nye learns this method, you will also be able to refine pills as easily as I did." This? Valley Master Nye hesitated and said, "It's not very convenient for me to practice your sect's cultivation method, is it?" Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, "No matter, this method is not very important in my sect. It is only a part of a certain cultivation method. I presume that the elders of my sect are also willing to be on good terms with Rejuvenation Valley for generations." -3. Chapter 454. Valley Head Nye was overjoyed upon hearing this, and Nie Qianyu was also surprised and happy. The cultivation methods of each sect were the foundation of their Jianghu. Even if it was just a little bit of cultivation method, they wouldn't easily show it to others. Since Zhang Xiaohua was so generous, didn't this mean that Rejuvenation Valley wasn't an outsider to him? Valley Head Nia was still somewhat worried. Nephew Rin, is this appropriate? It won't bring you any trouble, right? Also, virtuous Nephew Rin, the reason why I asked Xiao Yu to teach you all of Rejuvenation Valley's medical skills and alchemy skills was only to repay you for saving my life. We don't owe each other anything now, so don't break the rules of your sect because of this. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she thought to herself, this Valley Head Nia is really a sincere person. Although what he said isn't wrong, the benefits I gain from the medical techniques are far from what he knows. This is a big favor. If I don't repay it as soon as possible, I will always feel guilty in my heart. Waving her hand, Zhang Xiaohua smiled. Uncle Nia treats me like a nephew and tells me all of the secrets of the valley. This method of using inner strength is just a cultivation method. Even if the elders in the sect know about it, they won't blame me. That's good, that's good. Valley Head Nia was so happy that he didn't know what to say. Zhang Xiaohua continued. It's not convenient for me to show Uncle Nia the original copy of this cultivation method. After I copy down the key points, I'll show it to you tomorrow. How about that? And that's good. Although Valley Head Nia was anxious to learn the cultivation method, he also knew the inconvenience, and could only patiently agree. Nie Qianyu, on the other hand, laughed out loud. She must have read the crab handwriting Zhang Xiaohua used to copy her prescription. When Zhang Xiaohua heard Nie Qianyu's laughter and saw the playfulness in her eyes, she already knew the meaning within. She scratched her head and rolled her eyes, saying, Uncle Nie, if you're in a hurry, I'll take out the secret manual now and let Miss Nie copy it for me. What do you think? Valley Master Nie quickly shook his head and said, No need, no need. Nephew, you can copy it yourself and give it to me tomorrow. However, Nie Qianyu did not stand on ceremony and said, Father, you don't have to be so courteous. Let me copy it for Big Brother Rin. It's better for me to do this kind of chores. When Valley Master Nie heard this, and it was Zhang Xiaohua's suggestion, he no longer objected. He avoided arousing suspicion and went to guard the entrance of the cave. Zhang Xiaohua took out the secret book of Enchanted Finger from the money bag with Nie Qianyu's back. She flipped to the pages about using inner strength to simulate genuine qi and handed it to Nie Qianyu, who had been waiting for her at the desk. Thus, Zhang Xiaohua took the secret manual and Nie Qianyu used a brush to copy the relevant content on the white paper. Even the drawings on the secret manual were drawn to perfection. Although there was a lot of content in the secret manual, Nie Qianyu did not comprehend it herself, and only copied it simply. In the time it took to eat 2 meals, she had already completed the task. After Zhang Xiaohua finished flipping through the pages and closed the secret manual, Nie Qianyu placed the brush on the desk and moved her sore wrist. Nie Qianyu said softly, Big Brother Ren, thank you. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, It's okay, little Yuer. Rejuvenation Valley has treated me very well. Putting myself in their shoes, I would also like to see Rejuvenation Valley's elixirs improved to a higher level. In fact, if I wasn't afraid of causing trouble for Rejuvenation Valley, what's the harm in giving you this secret manual? Trouble? Nie Qianyu smiled and said, My Rejuvenation Valley has never been afraid of trouble. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua handed the secret manual over and said, Then you can take it. Nie Qianyu did not stand on ceremony and reached out to take it, saying, Give it to me, I want it. I want to see what kind of trouble it is. Seeing that Nie Qianyu really wanted to take it, Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly retracted her hand and said, I'm just joking with you. You're really going to take it? Nie Qianyu retracted her hand and said, I'm just joking with you. You're really going to give it to me? Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly. She was being teased again. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua put away the secret manual with a bitter face, Nie Qianyu smiled and ran out. As she walked, she called out, Father, I've finished copying it. Come in and take a look. Valley Master Nie's face was filled with uncontrollable excitement. He quickly walked to the desk and picked up the stack of white paper on top of it. He carefully looked at it. But as he looked at the paper one by one, The excitement on his face gradually faded and his eyebrows became more and more wrinkled. In the end, when he looked at me, his eyebrows were knitted together. Putting down the paper, Valley Master Nya asked, "Nephew Rin, this seems to be an extremely advanced method of circulating internal energy. Are you sure it's the key to controlling the temperature?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "It's exactly this. Uncle Nya, you should cultivate it first. If you can control the temperature, that would be the best. If you can't, then it can be considered an extremely advanced method." Valley Master Nya smiled bitterly and said, "I only thought it was some simple method and was delusional to think that I could master it in a short time. But looking at what's written in this secret manual, with my current internal energy cultivation, it would take me several months to reach the small success stage." Zhang Xiaohua hadn't cultivated internal energy and didn't dare to blindly answer. She only said, "Yes, Uncle Nya is right. In the past, I also spent a great deal of effort to be able to successfully cultivate it." Thinking for a moment, Zhang Xiaohua said, "Uncle Nya, please take care of this method. Only choose a reliable person in Rejuvenation Valley to pass it on. Don't pass it on to outsiders and remember it carefully." Valley Master Nya had always thought that Zhang Xiaohua would only pass it on to him. Seeing him like this and actually agree to pass it on to the next generation of Rejuvenation Valley, he was even more delighted. He deeply bowed and said, "Nephew Rin is so righteous. When there's a chance, I will personally go to Beta's school to thank you for your kindness." Cough, cough, this really won't do. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua repeatedly waved her hand and said, "Uncle Nya, you should cultivate it first and see if it's useful." "That's right. I think that Rejuvenation Valley's martial arts foundation isn't enough. If Uncle Nya can successfully cultivate this method, then you'll have an additional ability to defend yourself. Using this method to use internal energy, it may have unimaginable power, such as pressure points." "Ah?" Hearing this, Valley Master Nya couldn't help but exclaim, "Nephew, of course you sealed pressure points on the arena. Did you use this kind of internal energy?" Hearing this tone, Valley Master Nya already knew that Elder Yu couldn't undo Zhang Xiaohua's pressure points that day. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and nodded, saying, "However, Uncle Nya, you must not pass this method on to outsiders to avoid attracting trouble." This was already the second time Zhang Xiaohua reminded him. Valley Master Nya naturally knew the importance of this method and nodded in agreement. Then Zhang Xiaohua said again, "Uncle Nya, now that I know the Inner Valley's alchemy methods, I won't continue to watch. I want to try refining some pills myself starting tomorrow. What do you think?" Valley Master Nya smiled and said, "Rejuvenation Valley's current alchemy methods have made you laugh. If you want to refine pills yourself, of course you can. You can use the medicinal herbs in the valley as much as you want. How about you refine pills in my pill room? While I cultivate, I can also give you some guidance." Valley Master Nya wanted Zhang Xiaohua to guide him in his cultivation, but after all, he was Zhang Xiaohua's elder and couldn't put down his face to say it directly. How could Zhang Xiaohua not understand? She smiled and said, "Nephew likes peace and quiet when doing things. Refining pills must be a matter of concentration. I'd better find another pill room. It's better to leave this place for Uncle to practice." Nye Qianyu saw that her father had been tactfully rebuffed and smiled. "Father, isn't there a pill room with a door next door? No one uses it for a long time. Why don't you let Brother Ring use it? It's also close here. If he has any questions about refining pills, he can ask you at any time." Valley Master Nya heard this and said happily, "That's great. Let's go, nephew. I'll take you there." After speaking, he was about to pull Zhang Xiaohua out. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, "Valley Master Nya, I still have a request." Valley Master Nya asked curiously, "What is it? Do you still need a few boys to make the pills?" Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and said, "This matter is a bit difficult. I don't know if Uncle Nya can agree." Valley Master Nya and Nye Qianyu were increasingly puzzled and said, "What's difficult about it? Let's hear it. I want to practice more." I'll be bold and ask Uncle Niet to show me all of Rejuvenation Valley's pill recipes. I want to read the pill recipes 1,000 times and refine all kinds of pills. Ah? Valley Master Niet heard this and felt a bit difficult. Pill recipes, as the name implied, were the recipes for refining pills. Every pill recipe was created with great difficulty by the pill refiner. Rejuvenation Valley's pill recipes were the essence of Rejuvenation Valley's thousands of years of accumulation. It was the accumulation of many generations of pill refiners and was the most precious. Zhang Xiaohua opened her mouth and wanted to see all of them. How could Valley Master Niet not be troubled? Only Nie Qianyu, who was on the side, showed an expression of admiration when she heard this. Looking at Zhang Xiaohua's clear gaze, Valley Master Niet thought for a moment and said with gritted teeth, "All right, virtuous nephew Ren, since you have such a great wish, I will fulfill it. However, I also have 2 conditions." Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed and said, "Please speak, Uncle Niet." "First, virtuous nephew can only know about this pill recipe and cannot share it with others." "Of course. I swear that I will not share it with others." "Second, virtuous nephew has to leave half of the pills refined with the pill recipes in Rejuvenation Valley." "Just these 2 conditions?" Zhang Xiaohua was astonished and said, "It is natural that the pills refined with Rejuvenation Valley's medicinal herbs should be left in Rejuvenation Valley. Isn't half too little?" Valley Master Niet smiled and said, "No need. Just half is enough. If you agree, I will let you see all of Rejuvenation Valley's pill recipes." "All right, it's a deal. Uncle Niet, I agree to both of these conditions." Nie Qianyu, who was on the side, was puzzled and said, "Father, Big Brother Rin has already agreed to leave all of the pills. Why do you still want to give him half?" Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was also puzzled, Valley Master Niet smiled and said, "As the ancients said, drain the pond to fish, burn the forest to hunt. If Rejuvenation Valley does not give virtuous nephew Rin some benefits, how can virtuous nephew Rin concentrate on refining pills? Regardless of whether the refined pills are good or bad, they belong to others. How can he be motivated?" Zhang Xiaohua chuckled and was not in a hurry to speak. Nie Qianyu pouted and secretly said in her heart, "I don't know about others, but I understand this guy. He won't get up early if there are no benefits. Father's words really do make some sense." -3. Chapter 455. The pill room next to hers was much smaller than Valley Head Niet's, and there was only 1 pill furnace that could be used. What was amazing was that there was a bed and other things in the pill room. Although Zhang Xiaohua had no use for these things, it was an excellent excuse. Zhang Xiaohua did not want to live in the loft in the peach forest. In the past few days, there were many idle and busy people who came over regardless of whether they had something to do or not. In her spiritual awareness, she also found that some people were observing her. Although flies were not too harmful, they were still annoying. Now that she saw the bed in the pill room, Zhang Xiaohua immediately stuck a good character label on her forehead. Hearing that Zhang Xiaohua wanted to move into the pill room, Valley Master Niet was speechless. He thought to himself, "I've seen hard-working people, but I've never seen someone as hard-working as you. I'm not your master, so you don't have to act like this. Letting you live in the loft is of course to make it easier for you to communicate with my little you. You are good, not only did you not leave, you even moved back. This really makes me angry." Valley Head Niet looked at Nie Qianyu. Nie Qianyu was stunned and felt very uncomfortable. But after all, he wanted to learn the art of alchemy, so she could only encourage him and not stop him. Then she thought. Previously, when Big Brother Rin was learning the art of alchemy, he always ran to Big Brother's place. No matter how thick-skinned I am, I can't always follow him. Now that Big Brother Rin is only resting in this pill room, I am not afraid of others saying that I am here. If he is free, he can come and teach under the banner of guidance. Thinking of this, Nie Qianyu smiled and said to Valley Head Niet, "Father, looking at Big Brother Ren's diligence, are you very regretful?" Valley Head Niet was stunned and thought, "This guy doesn't know how to be gentle to the fairest sex and hides here to practice alchemy. What regret do I have? But he knew that his daughter would explain the reason, so he pretended to know and said with a smile, "Little you knows my heart." Zhang Xiaohua was also confused when he heard this. Nie Qianyu continued, "Father has met many talented disciples in his life who wanted to enter Rejuvenation Valley, but their temperaments were flawed. They only thought about the miraculous effects of the medicinal pills, but didn't think about the hard work involved in refining the pills. There were also many who were determined, but lacked quickness and weren't very useful. I've never seen someone as intelligent and determined as Big Brother Ren. How could father not cherish talent? You must regret not meeting Brother Ren earlier." Although Zhang Xiaohua was thick-skinned, she still blushed slightly from Nie Qianyu's flattery. She opened her mouth but didn't know how to refute. Valley Head Nia laughed and said, "Yes, little you is right. Nephew Ren, if you hadn't entered Beta school early on, I would have taken you as my disciple. Alas, it seems that your martial arts cultivation is very high, and you are only lacking in alchemy. Even if I wanted to teach you, it would be difficult." He then looked at Nie Qianyu and said, "On the other hand, little Yu has been exceptionally intelligent since she was young and often has amazing insights on alchemy. You can discuss it often. Alas, in the future, it will be the world of you young people." "I am old." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Uncle Nie's words are wrong. Young people are usually eager to make progress, and it is not surprising that they often have new ideas. But the experience of seniors is the shoulder of a giant. Only by absorbing experience can one stand higher and achieve better results. Moreover, alchemy is broad and profound. Compared to the seniors in the inner valley, Uncle Nie is only a young person." Valley Head Nie laughed and said, "Nephew Rin is right. With your inner strength method, I think I will be able to go further on the path of alchemy." Zhang Xiaohua cupped her hands and said, "Uncle Nie's spirit of research is admirable." Haha. Valley Head Nie laughed very happily. "Let's not talk about Valley Head Nie returning to the outer valley to practice how to simulate vital energy. Let's not talk about Nie Qianyu returning to her peach blossom temple and instructing Little Orange and the others to move Zhang Xiaohua's tools to the inner valley." After the two left, Zhang Xiaohua carefully observed the small alchemy room. This was a very ordinary alchemy room. It was no different from Valley Head Nie's except that it was much smaller. The earth fire in the groove could also be used. The alchemy furnace was one size smaller than Valley Head Nie's, but there was nothing special about it. The alchemy room was very dry and there was not the slightest bit of dampness. Presumably it was because of the earth fire. On one side of the bed, there was also a stone table and stone chair, but it was empty. It seemed that after a long time and using her spiritual sense to scan, she did not find any abnormalities in the alchemy room. Not to mention those abandoned jade slips that Zhang Xiaohua had placed her hopes on. Not long after, Xiao Juzi brought some people over with some bedding and daily necessities. After instructing them to set up the bed, Xiao Juzi secretly found an opportunity to ask, "Young Master Ren, could it be that you are sulking with Miss? You have to know that Miss is the most soft-hearted. Just say a few words and it will be fine. Why do you have to make things so stiff? How about I go back and tell Miss that you know you are wrong but you can't put down your face and are embarrassed to say it? Is that okay? Look at how cold and desolate this place is. How is this a place for people to live?" Zhang Xiaohua was angry and amused at the same time. She said, "Little Orange, do you see little Fishy Nia's angry appearance? Do I need to sulk with her? I'm just... Sigh, why am I telling you this? Little Orange, I just want to have some peace and quiet here. It has nothing to do with anyone. Is that so?" Little Orange seemed to understand a little and said with concern, "Young Master Ren, you have been in Rejuvenation Valley for a few months and only know how to busy yourself with cultivation. Even I have only seen you a few times. I say you should also take some time to wander around the inner valley with Mississippi. It is the season of spring, don't waste it. Oh, also, I heard old Master say that in order to learn, one should have a proper balance between tension and relaxation. If one only practices martial arts, it is also not good for the body. Seeing that little orange was about to continue nagging, Zhang Xiaohua repeatedly cupped her hands and said, I know, little orange. Don't I still have things to do these few months? When I am done, I will do as you say. How about that? So, little orange said with a face full of surprise, young Master Rin means that you will return to Rejuvenation Valley in the future? Okay, I know, I will tell Miss now. She has been nagging every day that she will not be able to see you in the future. After saying that, she ran out without looking back, laughing as she walked. Zhang Xiaohua scratched her head and did not know if she should stop her and explain in detail. She thought to herself, did I mean that? Why didn't I hear it myself? People often say that girls are pure and beautiful. Is this how it is? Zhang Xiaohua walked to the entrance of the alchemy room, looked left and right, then closed the door. She walked back to the front of the cauldron and lifted her arm to take out the huge cauldron from the groove. She casually placed it to the side and then turned on the earth fire. Looking at the green flame, Zhang Xiaohua revealed a smile at the corner of her mouth. She then sat cross-legged, closed her eyes, and thought for a moment. Her fingers moved slightly and formed a seal. When the seal was formed, she threw her hand and hit the burning earth fire. The earth fire shook slightly, as if it was endowed with intelligence, and became lively. Zhang Xiaohua released her divine sense and carefully observed the earth fire. Then, she continuously formed seals with her hands and hit the earth fire. Immediately, the green earth fire seemed to be dancing. It was sometimes big and sometimes small, sometimes left and sometimes right, and formed countless shapes. After a while, when Zhang Xiaohua felt that she was familiar with it, she withdrew her hands and withdrew her vital qi. The earth fire returned to its original state and burned quietly in the groove. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua nodded slightly and thought to himself, the crafting school of crafting sure has its own way of controlling fire. Even though this crafting guide does not have a specific method of crafting, the fire control techniques and basic techniques in the appendix are worth studying. Since 2 months ago, Zhang Xiaohua accidentally obtained the refining principles from the hands of the refining sex Lu Meng. She had been taking the time to slowly study it. Although this refining principles was the same as the Carefree Heart Sutra, it was only a basic refining method and did not involve specific techniques. But this fire control technique was after all the foundation of refining. Therefore, at the end of the jade slip, it was also recorded in detail. The refining of immortals did not use ordinary flames. It was either the true samadhi fire cultivated by oneself, or the flames rich in heaven and earth yuan qi in the world. It was also the first time that Zhang Xiaohua saw the true samadhi fire in the refining principles, so she did not know how to cultivate it. A flame rich in yuan qi, Zhang Xiaohua's first reaction was the lava on the deserted island. Moreover, he also thought of his own long sword. He reckoned that it was a special refining method that was used to refine the sword above the lava. The fire control technique was not complicated. Zhang Xiaohua had already grasped it long ago, but she did not have the opportunity to practice it in detail. Today, when she saw the azure red flames used for refining pills, her first reaction was not to refine pills, but to practice the fire control technique. This was also the reason why she wanted to use a separate pill refining room. Zhang Xiaohua had only refined a simple, fasting pill, before. The flames were generated from the heaven and earth yuan qi through the pill furnace's formation. Zhang Xiaohua had only used the pill furnace to control the pill fire. But now, she was actually controlling the earth fire. Seeing the azure red flames in her hands constantly changing into different shapes, a sense of pride as a qi practitioner arose spontaneously. Once Zhang Xiaohua had familiarized herself with the fire control technique, she took out a coffin lid made of jasper from her money pouch. She used a small sword to cut off a piece before putting the rest back into the money pouch. Next, Zhang Xiaohua activated the earth fire. When the fire was large enough, she used her spiritual sense to control the jade piece and throw it in. Not long after, the jasper turned into a ball of boiling jade liquid, constantly tumbling in the air. Strands of impurities were emitted as flying ash. After a while, the jade liquid had shrunk to half its original size. Seeing that the time was right, Zhang Xiaohua formed a seal with her right hand and slowly drew a simple formation on her fingertips. When the formation was formed, she saw Zhang Xiaohua point her finger and hit the formation towards the ceaselessly tumbling jade liquid. She shouted, "Go!" When the formation hit the jade liquid tumbled even more violently. After a few tumbles, it seemed to have gained life, constantly surging. In her spiritual sense, the fluctuations of yuan qi also became more and more intense. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua's right hand formed a seal again, directly hitting the jade liquid. At the same time, she withdrew the seal in her left hand and the earth fire was extinguished. When the seal hit the jade liquid, there seemed to be a crisp sound. The tumbling jade liquid instantly condensed into an incomparably dark green object that looked like a golden pellet suspended in the air. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Please support the author. Please support the original reading. -3. Chapter 456. He had to praise Zhang Xiaohua's creativity. Using the shape of a golden pellet to make a jade talisman was probably unprecedented in the 10,000 years of the celestial way. Zhang Xiaohua waved his left hand. It was the equipment control formula. In the weapon refining outline, the jade talisman in the air fell into Zhang Xiaohua's hand with a whoosh sound. Zhang Xiaohua first looked carefully at the dark green jade talisman, and then used his divine sense to observe the power of the array. He only felt that the qi of heaven and earth in the jade talisman was rhythmically stirring, slowly rotating along the path of the array. However, it was condensed and did not leak out the slightest bit of qi of heaven and earth. It was a good jade talisman. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. The jade talismans he had made previously were made using crude means. He directly inserted the array formation into the jade talisman. Although it was a jade talisman, it had been inserted forcefully and had lost its harmony. But now, with the help of refining techniques, he could quench the impurities in the jade and insert the array formation into the jade while it was in liquid form. The array formation was almost coexisting with the jade. Not only was its strength greater, the yuan qi of the array formation was also converged. This method of making talismans compared to before was simply the difference between cloud and mud. And the most important thing was that with this method of weapon refining, couldn't the jade talisman be made into different shapes according to one's wishes? At this time, Zhang Xiaohua's hand was rubbing the dark green little golden pellet jade talisman. It felt beautiful to the touch, much better than the dull square piece. Zhang Xiaohua happily strolled to the front of the bed and threw the grass praying mat on the bed. He held the jade talisman in his hand and thought, since the jade talisman can be made into different shapes, then the rabbit jade talisman in the Naiwan Palace should also be made from jade. I was wondering why this talisman was in the shape of a rabbit that day. So this was the reason. However, if the 365 incantations of this talisman were to be made into a big golden pellet, I don't know if it would work. But most probably not. The flow of qi of heaven and earth in this talisman is in the shape of a rabbit. When the jade liquid condenses, it must be in the shape of a rabbit. Now, Zhang Xiaohua had a lot of cultivation methods to comprehend. There were many incantations of this talisman, and they were obscure and difficult to understand, so his progress was not fast. However, Zhang Xiaohua knew that the origin of this talisman was very strange, and its power must be great, so he had to take out a certain amount of time to comprehend it every day. After these days of hard work, he had already mastered 50 to 60 incantations. Although this was only less than 20% of the rabbit talisman, it had a significant effect on Zhang Xiaohua's cultivation of incantations. For example, when Zhang Xiaohua used the fire control incantation for weapon refining for the first time, he could easily master it and control it skillfully. This was the effect of this rabbit talisman. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Xiaohua threw the jade talisman on the stone table and took out the jade slip for refining elixirs from his arms. This jade slip recorded a lot of prescriptions for elixirs. That day on the deserted island, only the seal wort could be used. Zhang Xiaohua only looked at the refining method for the fasting pill in detail, and looked at the rest generally. A few days ago, he studied the medicinal herb books of Rejuvenation Valley and found a problem. Most of the medicinal herbs in the Jade Slip were not recorded in Rejuvenation Valley's books. In other words, if he followed the prescriptions in the Jade Slip to refine elixirs, he would not be able to find the medicinal herbs. How could he refine elixirs? Therefore, in the morning, he made a request to Valley Master Nye. He wanted to study all the prescriptions in Rejuvenation Valley, and see if there was any difference between them and the prescriptions in the Jade Slip. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua took out the Jade Slip and couldn't help but think of the method of making a Jade Slip in the outline of weapon refining. Jade Slips were commonly used to record things in the immortal Tao. The appendix of the outline of weapon refining also casually recorded a few methods of making. When Zhang Xiaohua saw this Jade Slip for the first time, he was very curious about how to make it. Now that he knew the method of making it, he was naturally willing to try. Zhang Xiaohua took out an old piece of jade from his money bag. There was no fluctuation of primordial qi in it. He held the Jade Slip and the piece of jade in two hands, then closed his eyes and immersed his divine sense into the two pieces of jade. Then, according to the method of making in the outline of weapon refining, he began to make the elixirs. However, just copying less than 10% of the content, Zhang Xiaohua found that his divine sense consumption was very high. He immediately stopped and looked at the Jade Slip that had primordial qi fluctuations again. He smiled bitterly. This kind of plagiarism was really not a job that a qi refining stage cultivator could easily do. Putting the Jade Slip into his bosom, he practiced God traction for a while to replenish his divine sense consumption. Only then did Zhang Xiaohua take out the Jade Slip again and carefully look at the pill formula for the fasting pill. The fasting pill was the first type of elixir that Zhang Xiaohua had refined, and he was extremely proficient in it. However, the fasting pill formula didn't only have the seal wort, as there were 7 or 8 other ingredients. Zhang Xiaohua hadn't been able to find anything else on the deserted island, so he had only used the seal wort to practice, and had succeeded. Now that he had the conditions, he was naturally willing to refine the complete fasting pill. However, after Zhang Xiaohua looked through the pill formula, he discovered that there were 4 ingredients that he hadn't seen in the book. Most likely, Rejuvenation Valley didn't have them either. However, Zhang Xiaohua wasn't flustered. There was another important reason why he wanted to refine the fasting pill first, and that was because Rejuvenation Valley also knew how to refine the fasting pill. Zhang Xiaohua wanted to see the difference between the two fasting pill formulas. Could it be that Rejuvenation Valley's fasting pill is the same as mine and only uses the seal wort to refine it? However, since I can use the seal wort to refine the fasting pill, and I've also taken one myself and it also has the effect of fasting, why does this pill formula still require the other 7 medicinal herbs? Looking at the fasting pill formula, Zhang Xiaohua naturally thought to himself. Looking at the other medicinal herbs that he knew the names of, as well as their uses and effects, Zhang Xiaohua slowly pondered over it. Suddenly, he thought of the situation when he was in the Qi Huang courtyard when he wrote a prescription for a patient. There was definitely a main ingredient in the prescription, but other than the main ingredient, there were also side ingredients that had the effect of a monarch and his minister working together. Furthermore, the prescription would also adjust the 5 elements according to the theory of the 5 elements by matching medicinal herbs with similar effects. Could it be that this pill formula also has the theory of the 5 elements, yin and yang, and the monarch and his minister? Zhang Xiaohua felt a sudden realization. It had to be so. Where did the medicinal theory come from? This was the result of the art of pill refining flying into the homes of ordinary people. The medicinal pills refined were used by people of the Tao of Immortality, or the Tao of Martial Arts, and the decoctions boiled were used by ordinary people. The medicinal theory in the prescription was born out of the pill formula. Since there was such a theory in the prescription, the pill formula must also be the same. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua felt greatly ashamed. The theory of yin and yang, the 5 elements, and the path of a monarch and his minister must be the foundation of pill refining techniques. He didn't have a master to teach him and could only blindly read the jade slips. He didn't understand such a simple theory. Fortunately, he met Nie Qianyu and came to Rejuvenation Valley to learn about this from the medicinal theory. Otherwise, even if he learned all the pill formulas, he might not necessarily be able to understand the essence. Just as he was thinking, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He released his divine sense and saw Nie Qianyu quickly walking over with a small booklet in her hand. Zhang Xiaohua unhurriedly put away the jade slips and stood up to greet Nie Qianyu. When Zhang Xiaohua walked to the door, Nie Qianyu also happened to come over. When she saw Zhang Xiaohua, she smiled and said, "Big brother Ren, did you wait for too long?" Zhang Xiaohua shook his head and said, "No, I just felt bored sitting here and wanted to go out for a walk." Nie Qianyu was overjoyed when she heard this and said, "Then I'll accompany Big Brother Ren for a walk in the Inner Valley? I'll also tell you about the Inner Valley's situation while I'm at it." Zhang Xiaohua nodded his head in agreement. The two of them casually found a direction and walked in. When they walked to a medicinal garden, Nie Qianyu handed the small booklet in her hand to Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Big Brother Ren, take this first. This is one of the Rejuvenation Valley's pill formulas. You can use it first. After you've finished refining this book, I'll help you get the others." Zhang Xiaohua took it with a smile and said, "Thank you, little Yuer. With this book, I can slowly refine pills at night." Nie Qianyu also responded, "Big Brother Ren is so impatient. I originally wanted to come over tomorrow to refine pills with you, but seeing that your refining of the blood replenishing pill went very smoothly today, you might as well try it out tonight. If it doesn't work, I'll come over tomorrow to discuss it with you." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "That's good. By the way, I heard you mention on the way here that Rejuvenation Valley has the fasting pill. After eating it, you won't feel hungry for a few days. Is there a pill formula for it in this book?" Nie Qianyu smiled and said, "Yes, there is. This fasting pill isn't something too rare. It's just a pill that people in Jianghu carry around with them for convenience. The book in your hand contains the various basic pill formulas of Rejuvenation Valley." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she was overjoyed. When she opened it, she saw that there was indeed a fasting pill in the middle of the book. Then, she looked at the back and saw that the main ingredient was indeed seawort. Unlike what Zhang Xiaohua had thought, the latter part didn't have any supplementary herbs. Instead, it was similar to the pill formula on the jade slip, with 5 different kinds of herbs. These 5 kinds of herbs were commonly found in Rejuvenation Valley. Zhang Xiaohua didn't have time to think about the combination of the 5 elements of these herbs. She only asked, "Little Yuer, does Rejuvenation Valley have all 5 kinds of herbs for this fasting pill?" Nie Qianyu smiled and said, Yes. Other than the sealwort and Dahurian angelica, which need to be aged, the other herbs are commonly found in Rejuvenation Valley." Then, she said, "I understand now. Big Brother Ren isn't here for a stroll, but to gather herbs." Zhang Xiaohua laughed mischievously and didn't answer. Nie Qianyu pointed to a medicinal field at the foot of a distant hillside and said, "That's where the sealwort is planted. The ones at the bottom are 1 or 2 years old, while the ones at the top are 10 to 20 years old. If Big Brother Ren wants to refine the fasting pill, you should first take those that are younger." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "That's right. If I accidentally ruined your 20-year-old sealwort, even if Uncle Nie doesn't say it out loud, his heart would ache terribly." Nie Qianyu smiled tenderly and said, "Father isn't as petty as you." -3. Chapter 457. After Nie Qianyu finished speaking, she took Zhang Xiaohua to the place where the sealworts were planted. She helped Zhang Xiaohua dig out a few sealworts in the herb garden that were born in 1 or 2 years. She turned around and handed them to Zhang Xiaohua, asking, "Brother Ren, this sealwort is not easy to wash. Take it first. When we get to a place with water, I will wash it for you." Zhang Xiaohua felt strange and blurted out, "Why do I need to wash it?" However, she immediately understood that Rejuvenation Valley was frying pills. If the sealworts were not washed clean, there would be one more ingredient in the fasting pill. If it was discovered by others, it would become Earth Injection Pill, just like the Water Injection Chicken that young Master Li Jifeng talked about. Seeing Nie Qianyu's puzzlement, Zhang Xiaohua explained, "The ancient method of refining pills is about using alchemy fire to quench the impurities in the herbs. Although there is a lot of soil, it can be quenched with alchemy fire. You don't need to trouble yourself to wash it clean." Nie Qianyu blushed and said with a smile, "I have seen the steps of the ancient method of refining pills, but I have never thought of this. It seems that there is indeed a problem with the method of refining pills in Rejuvenation Valley." Receiving the sealworts from Nie Qianyu, Zhang Xiaohua had an idea. The sealworts could be stored for a long time, but many of the herbs used for refining pills were very delicate. If they were not stored properly, the vitality in the herbs would be lost quickly. Rejuvenation Valley did not have to consider this problem, but she had to prepare in advance. After thinking for a while, it seemed that there was a method to make a jade box in the appendix of the outline of refining weapons. She had to refine a few backups later. The other ingredients of the fasting pill were very common. Since Rejuvenation Valley planted them in the outer valley, Nie Qianyu had to continue walking outside with Zhang Xiaohua. At this time, the sun had already set in the west. The two of them walked on the rugged path in the inner valley. Mottled shadows fell on their bodies from time to time. Nie Qianyu felt that the path in the inner valley had never been so comfortable. Her mood was like a happy little bird, flying in the valley filled with the smell of herbs. There was still some distance between the inner valley and the outer valley, but Nie Qianyu couldn't wait for it to be farther. Ever since Zhang Xiaohua entered Rejuvenation Valley, she had been studying and cultivating with all her might. Although the place where she lived was very close to Nie Qianyu's, there weren't many opportunities for them to meet. Compared to the time when they used to travel together and chat and laugh in the same carriage, Nie Qianyu really missed the time when they were traveling together. This journey, which was neither too long nor too short, allowed her to find the warmth of the past. However, Zhang Xiaohua's topic was not romantic at all. "Little fish, yeah, I've just looked at the recipe for the fasting pill. Aside from the main ingredient sealwort, can you tell me what the effects of the other ingredients are? In addition, I have a question. If we directly use the sealwort to make the fasting pill, will it be successful?" Hearing this, Nie Qianyu was embarrassed and said, "Big Brother Ren, I can't answer your second question. I haven't tried it, and it seems that Rejuvenation Valley hasn't tried it either. However, I can answer your first question simply. The effects of these herbs are recorded in the ancient books." Then, Nie Qianyu explained the growth, effects, and characteristics of the other ingredients in detail. These were all recorded in the ancient books, so naturally, Zhang Xiaohua knew about them. However, listening to Nie Qianyu's soft voice and her clear and logical explanation, Zhang Xiaohua nodded secretly. She was not called smart for nothing. However, Nie Qianyu did not know the method of the 5 elements in the elixir. Perhaps she knew about it, but she did not think about it. In her explanation, there was no mention of it at all. While listening to Nie Qianyu's explanation, Zhang Xiaohua pondered in her heart. Slowly, she realized something and could not help but smile. "Little fish, after listening to you, I'm very impressed. To be honest, I've been reading books about these herbs, but after all, the time is too short, so I can't reach your level." Hearing this, Nie Qianyu felt sweet in her heart, but she comforted him. "Big Brother Ren, you don't have to be modest. It's already very rare for you to know so much in such a short time." Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and asked, "However, little fish, can you think deeper?" Nie Qianyu was stunned and puzzled. "Deeper? What deeper?" After choosing her words, Zhang Xiaohua probed. "Don't you know how to write prescriptions? Don't the herbs in the prescriptions have to match the 5 elements and adjust yin and yang?" Nie Qianyu's eyes lit up, but she hesitated. "The herbs in the prescriptions are used to treat people. Naturally, we have to consider the pros and cons. If we're not careful, won't we kill the person?" Moreover, the medicine has to be right for the illness to adjust the changes of the 5 elements in the person's body and return to normal. Oh, Big Brother Ren, you mean? Zhang Xiaohua touched her chin and looked like an expert. She said meaningfully, decoctions are for ordinary people, while elixirs are for people in Jianghu. Decoctions are used to treat people, while elixirs are used to adjust internal energy, or qi and blood. In essence, they should be the same, right? Nye Qianyu still shook her head. It's different. Decoctions are just ordinary things. How can they be compared with elixirs? Moreover, what Big Brother Rin said is relatively common in pharmacology. It said that decoctions evolved from elixirs. If it's suitable for elixirs, why didn't the alchemy technique mention the 5 elements? Could it be that everyone else is stupid? This? Zhang Xiaohua scratched her head. That's right. Even I can think of such a simple reasoning. How can other experts not think of it? Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was speechless, Nye Qianyu smiled and said, however, this is the first time I've heard of such a theory in alchemy. It's very novel. Big Brother Ren, reading like you is really reading. You can infer other things from one example and comprehend other things by analogy. Zhang Xiaohua straightened her chest and said, that's right. Your Big Brother Ren has read the 3-character classic for many days. Pfft. Although Nye Qianyu was used to hearing this joke, she still couldn't help but laugh. After that, the two didn't talk much about it. They just chatted for a while and walked out of the valley. There were also many herbs planted in the herb garden in the outer valley. However, they were all common and not rare. Because of the rich vitality in Rejuvenation Valley, these herbs grew very well. These herbs were managed by the herb garden's Fei He. Fei He was a tall and thin middle-aged man who was not good with words. Zhang Xiaohua had seen him before. Her only impression of him was that he lived up to his name. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua and Nye Qianyu come together, Fei He put aside his work and went to receive them. First, he helped the two of them pick a few herbs. Then, he didn't dare to disturb the two of them and prepared to leave. However, Nye Qianyu pulled him and said, second senior brother, don't be in a hurry to leave. Fei He asked curiously, is there anything else, little junior sister? Nye Qianyu pointed at Zhang Xiaohua and said, second senior brother, you know Big Brother Ren. If he comes to the garden to pick herbs in the future, don't block him. Fei He smiled and said, who in Rejuvenation Valley doesn't know Ren Xiaoxia? Little junior sister, you're worrying too much. He. Seeing Fei He's strange smile, Nye Qianyu gently stamped her feet and said angrily, second senior brother. Fei He was much older than Nye Qianyu. He watched her grow up and cherished her like his own child. Seeing her girlish attitude, he laughed in his heart and said, when Ren Xiaoxia was in Big Senior Brother's Jihuang courtyard, he often came to the garden to pick herbs. Little junior sister, don't worry. I see. Nye Qianyu somewhat understood, but she still didn't let Fei He go. She asked softly, second senior brother, you've been in charge of the herb garden for many years. You're very familiar with the properties and characteristics of various herbs. I want to ask you a question. Fei He smiled and said, little junior sister, you've been asking why since you were young. Now that you've grown up, you still haven't asked enough? Nye Qianyu smiled and said, second senior brother, you have a good memory. It seems that you haven't aged yet. However, I really don't know how to answer the question that Big Brother Ren asked me just now. Nye Qianyu solemnly explained the theory of the 5 elements in alchemy. Fei He pondered for a moment and said, this question, young hero Ren has asked a good question. I have also paid attention to it before, but I only know about medicinal herbs and am not proficient in alchemy. I only know a little about Jihuang, so I did not dare to think too deeply about it. As for why there's no theory of the 5 elements in alchemy, I think it's probably like this. Hearing that Fei He had also paid attention to this question, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but be interested. Fei He said, the application of herbs in pharmacology is based on the principle of alchemy. It applies herbs to human diseases. The theory of the 5 elements starts from acupuncture, then spreads to the prescription of decoction, and then back to the herbs in the prescription. Most of these herbs are common, and don't involve the magic herbs used in alchemy. Alchemy has existed since ancient times. Our predecessors had great wisdom, but they couldn't classify magic herbs into the 5 elements. Therefore, the 5 elements may only be used for common herbs. Thinking of this, I stopped thinking about it. There are still many things to be done. Who has the time to do something that our predecessors disdained or believed to be impossible? Oh, Ren Xiaoxia, I'm not talking about you. Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. What Fei he said was very reasonable and the logic was very simple. Although common herbs can be classified into the 5 elements, it's only according to the patient's condition. Magic herbs are not used to treat diseases, so they may not be classified. Moreover, if they can be classified, alchemy is already very mature, which is many years earlier than Qigong. Why can't our predecessors distinguish them? It must be because they can't. However, Zhang Xiaohua faintly felt that things were not as simple as what Fei he said. He might not know what the Tao of Heaven was, but he had faintly glimpsed the trajectory of the Tao of Heaven. He didn't know what the predecessors thought, but he did feel that the theory of the 5 elements was everywhere from the Tao of Heaven. It must be in the herbs used for alchemy. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua's chest rose a kind of ambition. Do what no one has done. Maybe I can create an era. -3. Chapter 458. Nie Qianyu and Fei he didn't know about Zhang Xiaohua's ambition. They only thought that he was ashamed and comforted him. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said goodbye to Fei he with the muddy herbs in his hand. Nie Qianyu lived in the peach-blossomed forest. Seeing that it was late, she didn't go back to the inner valley with Zhang Xiaohua. They agreed to meet the next day and then left reluctantly. After returning to the pill room, Zhang Xiaohua didn't hurry to start concocting pills. Instead, he carefully read the prescription of the fasting pill, sent by the Rejuvenation Valley and pondered over the herbs except for the sealwort. The more he looked at it, the more he felt that it was in line with the theory of the 5 elements. However, plants and trees were all of the wood attribute. It would be difficult to regard a herb as of the metal attribute. Of course, this was something that no one could solve in 10,000 years. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't figure out the mystery in a short period of time. Therefore, he had to study it slowly. Zhang Xiaohua takes out a jade slip and writes down the prescription of fasting bolus. He also writes down some of his experiences and puts it in his pocket. Then he comes to the earth fire. When he was collecting the sealwort just now, he has already thought of the jade box to store the precious herbs. He might as well refine it now. Zhang Xiaohua took out the green jade coffin lid from his money pouch and looked at it carefully. Previously, he had only suspected that it was some kind of formation artifact. Now, looking at the patterns on it and the faint yuan qi, combined with the blacksmithing he had just learned, he was certain that it was a formation artifact made using blacksmithing techniques. Although he didn't know what kind of formation it was, since it was a formation that harmed people's lives, he had to destroy it no matter how precious it was. Zhang Xiaohua took out a small sword from his pocket and drew a line on the jade board. A piece of jade fell out. Zhang Xiaohua wrapped it with his divine sense and sent it into the groove. Then, he put the small sword away and threw the jade board aside. He turned on the earth fire and started concocting. The concocting of the jade box was not troublesome. Only the magic formation carved on the 6 sides was a little complicated. He had to be careful. After all, he had to keep the primordial qi of the herbs. Otherwise, what was the use of it? After a short while, Zhang Xiaohua stopped concocting and a square jade box was completed. Zhang Xiaohua waved his left hand and kept it. He opened it and was very satisfied. Then, his right hand concocted a more complicated concocting technique. However, it was not the concocting technique in the weapon refining general principles. After his right hand concocted the concocting technique, he hit the lid of the jade box. When the concocting technique hit the lid, a layer of bright light flashed. It was as though the jade box was immersed in water and the entire jade box was wrapped up. When the light disappeared, the jade box had lost its lid. It looked like a complete piece of jade. It was exactly the same as the jade box of the Carefree Heart Sutra that Zhang Xiaohua found in the library of the Misty School. This concocting technique was a type of restriction left behind by Venerable Fire Dragon. It was used to restrict the jade box. Ever since Zhang Xiaohua obtained the restriction jade slip, he knew that the jade box in the Misty School was restricted by someone else. He had always wanted to make an identical item, but he did not have a jade box. Now that he knew how to refine weapons and had the materials, how could he not make one to satisfy his craving? However, was it too extravagant to use a jade box like his to store medicinal herbs? That was not a problem that Zhang Xiaohua was willing to consider. This young master has many jade boxes. I'll refine 2 of them. One to store medicinal herbs, and the other to store jade boxes. Is that okay? Zhang Xiaohua used his right hand to conjure a concocting technique, and used his finger to point at a certain spot on the jade box. The top of the jade box dispersed, and with a flash of light, it returned to the jade box with a lid. Zhang Xiaohua nodded his head slightly. This was the technique of an immortal. After putting the refined jade box into the money pouch, Zhang Xiaohua lowered his head and looked at the jade board that had 2 corners damaged. He simply used his small sword to cut the jade board into 2 and put half of it back into the money pouch while throwing the other half onto the earth fire. Immediately after, Zhang Xiaohua sat cross-legged and concocted a concocting technique with his left and right hands, hitting the earth fire and the melted jade liquid. In the time it took to eat a meal, Zhang Xiaohua had made more than 10 jade boxes of different sizes and batches. He then took out the money pouch and with a wave of his hand, he put all of them into the pouch. After refining the jade boxes, it was still early. Zhang Xiaohua walked to the side and moved the cauldron that had been thrown to the side to the groove. After the cauldron was hot, he placed his right hand on the protruding part of the cauldron and slowly controlled the temperature of the cauldron. According to the records of Rejuvenation Valley's pill recipe, he threw the sealwort and several other herbs into the cauldron one by one. He then placed his other hand on the protruding part and sent his divine sense into the cauldron to refine the fasting pill. Not long after, the essences of those herbs were refined and mixed into powder. It was the correct result recorded in Rejuvenation Valley's pill recipe. Looking at the pinch of powder with a medicinal fragrance in the cauldron, Zhang Xiaohua inwardly laughed. This was clearly medicinal powder. It would have been better to call it fasting powder. Why did he have to spend so much effort to knead it into a round ball and call it fasting pill? After refining Rejuvenation Valley's fasting powder, Zhang Xiaohua was too lazy to tidy up. He placed the cauldron there and casually extinguished the earth fire. Walking to the side of the bed, the grass praying mat was still there. Zhang Xiaohua sat down and scanned the outside with his divine sense. He took out his pill cauldron from his money pouch. Stroking the already shrunken pill cauldron in his hand, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but think of the days when he used to learn alchemy on the deserted island. In the blink of an eye, he hadn't refined alchemy for more than a few months. Zhang Xiaohua placed the pill cauldron on the open space in front of the bed. His hands formed seals and hit the pill cauldron one after another. The pill cauldron emitted a slight roar and slowly grew bigger until it was the right size. Zhang Xiaohua then stopped the seals. However, Zhang Xiaohua's brows furrowed slightly. When he was refining alchemy on the deserted island, the sound of wind, water, and birds chirped constantly, so he didn't pay attention to this low roar. However, in this quiet pill cauldron, it was clearly out of place. After thinking for a while, he took out a few jade talismans and placed them in the 4 corners of the pill cauldron to set up a formation to protect the pill cauldron. Only then did he feel relieved and formed seals to light the pill cauldron's fire. After familiarizing himself with a few seals, he recalled the process of refining the fasting pill. Then he waved his hand and the Solomon's seal and other herbs that had been thrown to the side appeared in his hand. According to the pill cauldron's instructions, he threw the Solomon's seal and other herbs into the pill cauldron in order. Once the herbs and soil were burned by the pill fire, the impurities inside immediately turned into smoke. Only the essences were left rolling in the pill cauldron. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua formed a few more seals and the medicinal powder slowly began to rotate in a regular manner inside the pill cauldron. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua used his divine sense to observe more carefully. The essences of the various herbs were not easy to identify, but there were faint embryonic forms of the 5 elements that were constantly promoting and restraining each other. The entire fasting pill was gradually taking shape. Zhang Xiaohua did not dare to be careless. She only observed for a moment before focusing her attention on the incubation of the pills. After a while, the medicinal fragrance from the cauldron gradually dissipated. Zhang Xiaohua knew that it was time to pull out the pills. Following her heart's desire, she inserted a few spells into the cauldron. As if there was a soft sound in her heart, the main pill that had been slowly rotating just now was immediately divided into 4 small pills of even size and abnormally round. After pulling out the pills, Zhang Xiaohua did not use her spiritual sense to drive the pills. Instead, she used the telekinesis technique of weapon refining. With a wave of her hand, the 4 pills immediately flew into her hand. Carefully looking at these abnormally round pills, the corners of Zhang Xiaohua's mouth curled up into a bitter smile. With one look, she knew that these pills could not be made artificially. It was destined that she would not be able to give them to Nie Qianyu. She then placed them in front of her nose and sniffed. The medicinal fragrance was extremely faint. She then took out the fasting pills that she had previously refined from her money pouch. With one hand, she compared the 2 pills. The shape of the 2 pills were exactly the same. However, the fasting pills that were made using only yellow essence had an extremely strong fragrance. She did not need to place them in front of her nose to smell them. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua's heart stirred. She released her spiritual sense and carefully compared the yuan qi of the 2 fasting pills. Sure enough, the yuan qi of the fasting pills that she had previously refined was leaking. Although it was not much, it was still leaking. However, the yuan qi of the fasting pills that she had just refined was almost undetectable. When she used her spiritual sense to enter the pills, there was actually a faint formation that surrounded the pills. It should be this formation that prevented the yuan qi and the medicinal fragrance from leaking out. Although the previous fasting pills were also wrapped in something similar to a formation, there were obviously some flaws. The yuan qi and the medicinal fragrance were leaking out from here. Perhaps, this was the innate 5 elements formation formed by refining the pills? Zhang Xiaohua naturally became suspicious. After comparing the pills, Zhang Xiaohua placed the fasting pills that she had just refined into a jade bottle. Looking at the remaining yellow essence and several auxiliary materials on the ground, she lit up the alchemy fire and the alchemy furnace and refined the remaining medicinal ingredients into 10 fasting pills. She then placed all of them into the jade bottle and hid them. Seeing that it was still early, Zhang Xiaohua did not refine any more pills. Instead, she sat cross-legged and calmed her heart to comprehend the Tao of Heaven. The next morning, Zhang Xiaohua woke up. She placed the cauldron back into the groove, removed the formation, and walked out of the alchemy room. In the early morning, as the sunlight shone on the inner valley, all kinds of birds woke up early and chirped non-stop. Although there was no dense forest around the alchemy room, she could still hear the constant chirping of birds. Zhang Xiaohua released her divine sense. Seeing that there was no one waiting nearby, she got into a fighting stance and practiced the Big Dipper magical fist. She only stopped when she had completed 18 rounds of bone tempering with the warm current. However, the fist technique that she had practiced in the past had lost its effect after only 18 rounds of practice. Zhang Xiaohua felt very unsatisfied. However, what could she do if she did not practice the fist technique? Practice the flying sword? The nameless swordsmanship only had 10 moves. She had already mastered it. Moreover, if she practiced the flying sword in the Rejuvenation Valley, wouldn't it be obvious that she was a cultivator of the Tao of Immortality? Thinking of the swordsmanship, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly remembered that when the Daolan Temple monk lost to her at the Misty School's martial arts competition, he had promised to let her go to the Daolan Temple's law enforcement hall a year later. Monk Chang Gung would teach her the Daolan Temple's Dharma swordsmanship. However, the 1-year promise had already passed. Moreover, the Misty School had been destroyed by the Daolan Temple. Would Monk Chang Gung still admit to his promise? -3. Chapter 459. At the martial arts exhibition, Zhang Xiaohua had felt that Chang Gung was a kind and amiable monk. However, when she heard that when the Misty School was destroyed, Chang Gung also appeared on the Misty Peak and dealt with the people of the Misty School, her impression of him was immediately replaced by that of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now that she thought of this, she wondered if she should go to the Daolan Temple and ask him to fulfill his promise. If he did not admit it, she would be surrounded by a few young monks and a few old monks. Even if she had 3 heads and 6 arms, she might not be a match for them. Well, before she had absolute confidence, she had better not pluck the tiger's whiskers. There was still some time before the appointed time with Nie Qianyu, so Zhang Xiaohua did not want to waste time. She returned to the elixir chamber and sat cross-legged on the futon, carefully comprehending the rabbit talisman in her mud pill palace. Although the rabbit talisman was one of the talismans of the entire outer formation of the elixir heart, the 365 incantations of the talisman itself formed a formation. Previously, when she had just learned dozens of incantations, her attainment in the formation had improved by leaps and bounds. If she could learn more than 300 incantations, she could be considered to have a small achievement in the formation. Moreover, Zhang Xiaohua was also looking forward to it. Firstly, he wanted to combine the 365 incantations with the refining technique to make the rabbit jade talisman. He didn't know what kind of special effect it would have. Secondly, he wanted to make each incantation into a jade talisman. If he used the 365 jade talismans to set up a formation, would he be able to set up a powerful formation? These guesses could only be made after she finished comprehending all the incantations. The time for cultivation passed very quickly. Zhang Xiaohua was immersed in the pleasure of comprehending the incantations. With a thought, she released her divine sense and saw Nie Qianyu walking into the elixir chamber with a smile on her face. A wry smile appeared on Zhang Xiaohua's face. Cultivating in the mortal world was truly not an easy task. She faintly felt that the reason why she did not want to meddle in other people's business for a period of time might be related to cultivation. Looking up at the elixir chamber, Zhang Xiaohua found nothing wrong. She stood up and went to greet her. He ran into Nie Qianyu at the entrance of the elixir chamber. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua coincidentally walking to the door, Nie Qianyu felt very strange and asked, "Brother Ren, you're so amazing. It seems that every time I come to find you, you coincidentally walk to the door." "Oh, it's true. In the attic in the peach forest, and here, it's true," Zhang Xiaohua secretly said. "Isn't that nonsense? I only came out because I saw you coming. Sigh, but this is too obvious." However, he could only say, "Well, this young master had a sudden impulse and went to take a look at the entrance. I didn't expect to meet you here." Nie Qianyu curled her lips and said, "Every time he does it on a whim? Then Big Brother Ren's vigor is too vigorous. He's a young man after all. His qi and blood are abundant. There's nothing I can do about it. Besides, and what?" Nie Qianyu said playfully. "Did you feel that it was time for me to arrive, so you came to the door to welcome me?" This? Zhang Xiaohua was somewhat speechless. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua didn't say anything, Nie Qianyu thought that Zhang Xiaohua was a little shy. She also lowered her head slightly and said softly, "Big Brother Ren, I'm just the same. I felt that you were waiting for me at the door, so I hurried over." Her last words were so soft that they couldn't be heard. Zhang Xiaohua's heart, which had been tempered by the immortal cultivation method, suddenly jumped. She hurriedly changed the topic and said, "Little fish Nie, you came so early today. Why didn't you bring any medicinal herbs? Don't tell me you want us to go and pick them together?" Zhang Xiaohua changed the topic. Nie Qianyu's expression was a little sad, but then she smiled and said, "I wanted to go with Ren Xiaoxia, but how could I trouble Ren Xiaoxia to do it himself? Last night, Father specially found a few disciples to help him pick the herbs." "Oh?" Zhang Xiaohua was astonished. "So it's like this. Won't we be able to familiarize ourselves with the growth of the herbs if we pick them ourselves? Nie Qianyu shook her head and said, growing medicinal herbs is also a kind of knowledge. Otherwise, Senior Marshal Brother Fei, he wouldn't have to manage the herb garden alone. Wouldn't it be a waste of time if we were to pick the herbs? It's better to refine the pills directly. Although Zhang Xiaohua didn't quite agree with her opinion, she realized that her time was limited. After thousands of years of accumulation, Rejuvenation Valley had countless medicinal pills. She didn't know how many there were. If she refined a few pills a day, she didn't know if she could finish refining them before the people from the cult of fragrance arrived. Thus, she didn't express any more opinions. Nie Qianyu walked into the pill room and sniffed. Big Brother Rin, the smell of sealwort in the pill room is very strong. Did you succeed in refining the fasting pill yesterday? Zhang Xiaohua said disdainfully. Look at what you're saying. How could Xiaoxia fail to refine such a simple fasting pill? You're looking down on me too much. Nie Qianyu looked at the cauldron in the groove and walked forward. She took out the box at the bottom of the cauldron and looked at the medicinal powder inside. She said with a smile, and Xiaoxia said that we forgot to put the fasting pill into the porcelain bottle. I'm afraid that a lot of the medicinal efficacy will be lost after a night. Zhang Xihua's heart skipped a beat. She asked, will the medicinal efficacy of the fasting pill, which was refined using a complete pill formula, also disappear very quickly? Nie Qianyu nodded. Big Brother Rin doesn't refine many pills, so I'm afraid you don't know. It's not just the fasting pill that's like this. It's the same for the other pills. After refining, the pills must be refined as soon as possible and placed in the porcelain bottle. If they're spread out like this, they'll lose their medicinal efficacy very easily. After she finished speaking, she took out a small porcelain bottle from her bosom and poured all the powder in the box into it. She then said, however, the medicinal efficacy of these pills that Big Brother Rin refined using the ancient method is 50% better than the ones refined by Rejuvenation Valley. Even if the medicinal powder is spread out for a night, it should be similar to the ones refined by Rejuvenation Valley. While they were talking, a few disciples came to the pill room and placed a large pile of clean medicinal herbs on the ground. They stood there and waited for instructions. Nie Qianyu looked at Zhang Xiaohua and ordered the disciples to leave the pill room first. They were not allowed to enter without instructions. After the disciples left, Nie Qianyu said, Big Brother Ren, today we'll refine the all-dispelling pill, new snow pill, Tianqiao pill, plum tongue pill, and Jinle pill. These pills are recorded in the pill formula that I gave you yesterday. Take a look. When should we start? Zhang Xiaohua took out the pill formula and looked at each pill one by one. She said with a smile, Then let's start now. I think the steps of refining these pills are similar to those of the fasting pill. There's no need to hesitate. Nie Qianyu said, That's great. Big Brother Run, I'll watch from the side. If there's anything I don't know, I'll ask you. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me immediately. What do you think? Zhang Xiaohua nodded secretly. According to Valley Master Nie's intention, she wanted Nie Qianyu to guide her in refining pills. Nie Qianyu said that because she was worried about her reputation, she only said that it was a competition. She was really a sensible girl. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile, That's great. If I do anything wrong, you can tell me. Nie Qianyu nodded and said, Big Brother Rin, you don't have to be afraid of making mistakes. These medicinal herbs are made in triplicate, enough for you to refine 3 times. If it's not enough, you can let the disciples pick them. Zhang Xiaohua said with satisfaction, No need, I think 3 portions are enough. Then, she walked to the side of the cauldron and turned on the earth fire. She looked at Nie Qianyu and said, Then I'll start? Nie Qianyu also nodded and said, Then let's start. After saying that, she was about to help Zhang Xiaohua separate the medicinal herbs. Zhang Xiaohua quickly stopped her and said, Let me do this. You can't always accompany me in refining pills. After saying this, she regretted it. It was too ambiguous. Sure enough, Nie Qianyu lowered her head slightly and did not answer. Zhang Xiaohua quickly separated the medicinal herbs for the all-dispelling pill and threw them aside. She slowly adjusted the flame until the cauldron was hot. When Zhang Xiaohua was about to put in the medicinal herbs, Nie Qianyu summoned the courage to look up and carefully watched Zhang Xiaohua's skillful movements. The refining of the all-dispelling pill was similar to that of the fasting pill. In a short time, Zhang Xiaohua had finished refining the all-dispelling pill. Nie Qianyu was a little surprised to see Zhang Xiaohua refining the all-dispelling pill so easily. Yesterday, when she saw Zhang Xiaohua controlling the temperature of the cauldron, she was still a little unfamiliar. She was worried that Zhang Xiaohua would accidentally burn the medicinal herbs today, but now it seemed that she was even more skillful than yesterday. How could she burn the pills? Seeing Zhang Xiaohua handing over the square box, Nie Qianyu woke up from her dream and hurriedly asked the disciples outside to come in and collect the pills in a porcelain bottle. Then, she hurriedly prepared to put in the second set of medicinal herbs, but was stopped by Zhang Xiaohua with a wave of her hand. Zhang Xiaohua said, "Let's put the rest of the herbs aside. I'll think about it in the afternoon. Let's refine other pills first." After he finished speaking, he rushed to take out a few medicinal herbs for the new snow pill. However, this time, he did not take 1/3 of the amount, but more than half of it. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's actions, Nie Qianyu's lips curled into an imperceptible smile. She thought to herself, "Big Brother Rin is indeed a wonderful person. He knew that Father sent a disciple over to take away the pills that he refined. Before I could say anything, he had already sent more than half of the pills over. Presumably, some of the pills on the ground were left for himself after he refined them in the afternoon." Sure enough, it was as Nie Qianyu thought. Zhang Xiaohua did not leave any of the medicinal dregs for the new snow pill and had the Rejuvenation Valley disciples put them all into porcelain bottles. Seeing this, Nie Qianyu nodded continuously to herself. Zhang Xiaohua became more and more proficient in refining. Later on, she was practically refining pills with her eyes closed. The sun outside the pill room was just hanging above her head. The few pills that Nie Qianyu had prepared to refine today were all refined by Zhang Xiaohua. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua clap her hands and call it a day, Nie Qianyu said apologetically, "Big Brother Ren, I thought that since it was the first time refining today, we would have to discuss it. In the end, you didn't even ask a single question and finished refining all the pills. I see that your technique is very skillful and almost exactly the same as described in the book." Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, "Practice makes perfect. If you have vigorous inner strength and have mastered the method that I mentioned last time, there shouldn't be any problems." Nie Qianyu smiled bitterly. "It's a pity that I don't have such vigorous inner strength." Then she smiled. "What plans do you have for finishing so early today?" As she said this, there was a slight expectation in her eyes. "Recommend me." -3. Chapter 460. Zhang Xiaohua thought for a while and said, "Little fish Nie, it's still early. I want to carefully recall the pill refining technique just now and think about the experience of refining the all-dispelling pill, new snow pill, etc. When I have time in the future, I'll accompany you to pick herbs. How about that?" Nie Qianyu forced a smile and said, "It's okay, Big Brother Ren, you cultivate first. I'll go back and prepare. Tomorrow, I'll bring more herbs and more pill formulas. I'm sure not only you, but also Father will be very happy." After that, her eyebrows hung with disappointment, and she hurriedly left with the disciples. Looking at Nie Qianyu's small and thin figure gradually disappearing, Zhang Xiaohua had an indescribable feeling in her heart. She sighed and closed the door of the pill refining room. The herbs for refining the pills had already been divided. After Zhang Xiaohua sat down, she took out the pill furnace. After calming her heart, she began to use the immortal alchemy technique to refine the pills just now. Not to mention Zhang Xiaohua, Nie Qianyu returned to the outer valley with a bit of bitterness and brought a few disciples to the hall where Valley Master Nie presided over the affairs of the valley. Valley Master Nie had just finished dealing with some things and was resting with his eyes closed. He was carefully pondering over the techniques that Zhang Xiaohua had given him. When he heard the footsteps and saw that it was Nie Qianyu, he was very surprised and asked, "Little Yu, why are you here? Aren't you going to the inner valley to teach Ren Xiaoyao the refining method of the pills today?" Nie Qianyu saw her father's concerned look and felt very uncomfortable. She pursed her lips and said, "How can I teach him? He's very powerful." Seeing that his daughter was angry, Valley Master Nie walked forward and smiled. "It seems that this Ren Xiaoyao made you angry? What's going on? Tell me." Nie Qianyu didn't speak. She found a chair and sat down. She drank 2 mouthfuls of tea and said angrily, "Why would I be angry? I'm not angry at all." Okay, don't be angry." Valley Master Nie seemed to be very patient and said, "Then you have to tell father clearly so that I can settle the score with that kid." "Settle accounts?" Nie Qianyu looked at Valley Head Nie and said, "If you knew, why would you still look for Big Brother Ren? Wouldn't you be worshipping him?" Hearing Nie Qianyu say the words, "Big Brother Ren," Valley Master Nie knew that his daughter was slightly happy. He then pretended to be curious and asked, "Then tell me, why do I have to worship him?" Seeing that her father was interested, Nie Qianyu asked, "Father, do you know why I came back so early?" When Valley Master Nie heard this, he muttered in his heart, "Didn't I ask this question from the start? Also, is there any difference between this question and the previous one?" However, he still looked at his daughter dotingly and asked in surprise, "Why? Little Yu, tell me about it." Seeing her father's astonishment, Nie Qianyu's gloominess dissipated. She said proudly, "Father, you don't know. I prepared 5 to 6 ingredients for the elixir today, thinking that it would be enough for today's use. However, I never expected that Big Brother Ren could refine each elixir perfectly without any mistakes." "Ah?" Valley Master Nie was also surprised and said, "When I saw him yesterday, his technique was still very rough. It didn't seem like he had refined elixirs before. Could it be that he became an expert just yesterday?" Nie Qianyu smiled. "That's right. The elixir recipes I gave him yesterday were all similar to the fasting elixir. The refining techniques were also similar. That's why he was able to refine the elixir so smoothly. Yes, even if that's the case, it's still extremely rare." "Oh, that's right. Father, Big Brother Ren refined most of the herbs into elixirs and gave them to me to bring back." Valley Master Nie frowned and asked, "Didn't you say that he would take half?" "Yes, that's what I originally said. However, Big Brother Ren didn't ask for the freshly refined elixirs. He only left a few herbs and said that he would refine them in the afternoon. It's considered his share. Sigh, this child is really benevolent. It seems that he really just wants to learn alchemy. Thinking about it, I still asked for half of the elixirs from him yesterday. That's right. Father, look at how magnanimous Big Brother Ren is. He didn't even look at the quality of the elixirs and let me bring them back. Haha, little Yu still has good eyesight. Father is getting old." Nie Qianyu smiled slightly with a little shyness in her eyes and said, "Father, don't you want to take a look at the elixirs refined by Big Brother Ren?" Valley Master Nie stopped smiling and nodded. "Of course I have to take a good look. I have already seen the blood-replenishing elixir that he refined yesterday. With the same amount, the medicinal properties are more than 5 times stronger than the elixirs that we refined ourselves. I don't know if the elixirs refined today are the same." Nie Qianyu waved her hand and several disciples behind her brought up their porcelain bottles and then left the hall. Valley Master Nie casually took a porcelain bottle and opened it. A strong medicinal fragrance rushed out. Valley Master Nie took a sniff and exclaimed, "This is the new snow elixir? How can the medicinal properties be so strong? It smells more than 5 times stronger than the elixirs that we refined ourselves." Nie Qianyu said with a smile, "Father, this is just a sniff. If you study it carefully, I feel that it is at least 7 times stronger." Valley Master Nie did not doubt Nie Qianyu's judgment at all. He sealed the porcelain bottle and opened the other porcelain bottles. He sniffed them one by one and even poured out some medicinal powder from a few bottles to see and taste with his own eyes. When he finished sealing the porcelain bottles, his face had already revealed an expression of disbelief and surprise. He looked at Nie Qianyu and asked, "Little Yu, did you see Ren Xiaoyao personally refine these elixirs with your own eyes?" Nie Qianyu nodded solemnly and said, "Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. Big Brother Ren personally refined them." "Good, good, good." Valley Master Nie's face was full of 3 good words. He praised with a smile. "We really picked up a treasure." "No, no, no, he is the savior of our rejuvenation valley." When Nie Qianyu heard this, her face was also full of smiles. She said, "Congratulations, Father. If there is no problem with the cultivation method that Big Brother Ren taught you, Father will be able to revive Rejuvenation Valley in a few months' time and reappear the ancient method of refining elixirs in the world." Valley Master Nie was also happy. He said, "Congratulations to you too. Little Yu, this is all thanks to you. Although you encountered a disaster on this long trip, you also turned misfortune into blessing. You even brought back such a great opportunity for Rejuvenation Valley." Then, he sighed and said, "The rarest thing is that not only did Nephew Rin save you, he also imparted such an important cultivation method to you. This kindness, it will be difficult for Rejuvenation Valley to repay." Nie Qianyu said, "Father, you are thinking too much. Do you think Big Brother Rin is the kind of person who would ask for repayment?" Valley Master Nie shook his head and said, "When he saved you back then, he did not ask for a reward at all. He also did not ask for a reward when he took over the arena of the marriage by martial arts competition. He also did not ask for a reward when he imparted the cultivation method of refining elixirs to me. Is there really such a person in this world who does not care about himself and only cares about others?" Pfft! Nie Qianyu almost laughed out loud. She said, "If it was someone else, I might believe it. But if it is Big Brother Ren, I will not believe it even if you beat me to death." When she finished speaking, she told Valley Master Nie about some of the interesting things that happened along the way. Moreover, she took out the gold that she obtained from the peach forest outside Sorrow City and showed it to Valley Master Nie. She then said, "I reckon that this guy has forgotten about this gold. Otherwise, he would have asked me for it long ago." "I see." Valley Master Nie did not know whether to laugh or cry. The image of Zhang Xiaohua in his heart immediately collapsed, and she became a living person. "Then, little Yu, should we also prepare some gold and silver for him?" Valley Master Nie probed. "Don't. Why should we give it to him? He didn't ask for it." "Father, you don't know that he is greedy for small gains and has never asked for it. If you don't give it to him, he won't want it either. Now that you have asked, he will be very happy. If we don't give it to him, let's see how he will take advantage of it." Hearing Nie Qianyu's words, Valley Master Nie laughed in his heart. "Little Yu is obviously angry with him. Sai, let them handle this kind of thing." He then said, "But if we don't express our gratitude, won't he think that our Rejuvenation Valley is stingy?" After thinking for a while, Nie Qianyu shook her head and said, "It's better not to express our gratitude. To be honest, Big Brother Rin just likes to take advantage of small gains. With his martial arts, what kind of gold and silver can't he get? Moreover, it's still the same sentence. With his temperament, he would definitely be able to obtain some benefits from pill refining. Since he wants to learn pill refining, and we've provided him with pill formulas and medicinal herbs, he can't be more than happy. There's no need to express anything, right? But the pills that he refined were all left in Rejuvenation Valley. He didn't get anything himself. We are the ones who are secretly happy. This?" Nie Qianyu was also somewhat speechless. Indeed, Zhang Xiaohua wanted to learn pill refining techniques, but the pill refining technique that she displayed today seemed to be the ancient method of pill refining. She didn't even learn any pill frying technique at all. If she said that she wanted to practice with pills, it didn't seem necessary. What if she wanted to see Rejuvenation Valley's pill formula? Thinking of this, Nie Qianyu couldn't help but glance at Valley Master Nie. Sure enough, Valley Master Nie was also looking at her. The two of them said in unison, "Pill formula. That's the only possibility." Nie Qianyu said. But before coming to Vow City, I never said that I was from Rejuvenation Valley. Moreover, looking at him, it seemed that he didn't know about Rejuvenation Valley. Valley Master Nie also said thoughtfully, I've also discussed with your Uncle Yu. We feel that the possibility of this Ren Xiaoyao specifically coming to Rejuvenation Valley is not high. Moreover, the pill formula was something that happened after he took down the challenge arena. It definitely wasn't something that he had planned for a long time. Yes, I'm still at ease with Big Brother Ren's temperament. He's not that kind of person. Yes, that's good. Valley Master Nie thought for a moment, and seemed to have made a certain decision. He said to Nie Qianyu, if that's the case, then let's fulfill his wish and give him all of our Rejuvenation Valley's pill formulas to refine. I'd like to see how big of a surprise this Ren Xiaoyao can bring me. Nie Qianyu was greatly alarmed when she heard this and hurriedly said, Father, you can't do this. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian-3. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.